Chapter 2137. At this time, there were less than 4 hours left before the arrival of the tidal wave. The density of the ominous creatures had increased significantly, and the price of fighting freely was rapidly increasing. Most people already knew that the situation was not right, and they all shouted, "Retreat! Don't be greedy for those energy crystals." When the defending army returned to their positions, the defending army that was already prepared began to attack with the pure stone arrow rain that they had used in the previous battles. The sky was filled with holy light arrows, piercing through the sky and blocking the enemy's retreat. At this time, these city defense army consumed war supplies, not their own. Because they couldn't participate in the free hunting, as long as they didn't die after the war, they could get extra energy crystals. Of course, not everyone could join the city defense army. These people were all at the Venerable Realm, without exception. The selection process was very strict, so others could only be jealous of them. Swish, 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 wave after wave of arrows rained down. If one looked at it from a third person's perspective, it would look like a meteor had exploded. The pure and holy arrows never stopped, and in the short time it took for an incense stick to burn, the number of purity stones consumed had reached a shocking 5 million. Of course, outside the mountain city, a large number of energy crystals were also left behind. In the Lord's mansion, Zhang Xuanyu and the others were surprised. Are those the so-called clean stones? This is a war of attrition. They don't look good at all. Luo Xiaobai shook her head. You can't say that. This may be the specialty of this chaotic wasteland. What we fight is resources, but what we get back is also resources. It's equivalent to exchanging resources with these ominous creatures. But the resources in exchange can greatly help cultivators grow stronger quickly. Lu Renquang added, I'm thinking, what if we run out of these stones? If they fight like this every 100 years, what about 10,000 years, 100,000 years? And this is just a city. Someone said, even the resources of the chaotic azure sea can't be dug out. Besides, the outside world is vast, and there must be a lot of such clean stone veins. Not only Zhang Xuanyu and the others were shocked, but even Han Fei and Tai Yuan were also shocked. Every second, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of clean stones were consumed. At this rate of consumption, by the time the tidal wave arrived, at least 100 million pure stones would have been consumed, perhaps even more. About an hour later, the speed of the clear stone arrows could no longer completely resist the attacks of these ominous creatures. However, the guards of the mountain city had already made preparations. They had already laid down a large number of clean stone mines that stretched for thousands of miles outside the mountain city. In the sky above the city, the pure stone shield was ready. Bang, bang, bang. When the sea of ominous creatures rushed over, the clean stone water thunder burst out, illuminating the entire mountain city. It was as if holy light had enveloped the earth. Most people could only see a vast expanse of white in front of them. They couldn't tell how many ominous creatures were in front of them. However, the outermost guards were all ready for battle at this moment, and were only waiting for the guard captain's order. Amidst the flashes of lightning, when the first ominous creature charged into the area within 100 miles of the mountain city, there was a buzzing sound as a holy light barrier suddenly rose 2,000 miles away. This holy light barrier enveloped the entire mountain city in an orderly manner. The defensive array of the mountain city had been activated half an hour in advance. The kings all shouted, "Everyone attack! The battle time is only half an hour." Hook kill! Ripples constantly appeared on the city protecting array, which was caused by countless ominous creatures hitting the array. However, these collisions and vibrations were rapidly decreasing. Han Fei and the others could sense that at the moment the city protecting array was activated, a large number of ominous creatures actually took the initiative to avoid it. They no longer attacked the mountain city, and they didn't know where they were going. Seeing this scene, Han Fei and the others couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Sure enough, the ominous creatures were afraid of the power of the clean stone. When the entire city was enveloped by the light of the clean stone, they lost interest in the mountain city. But Han Fei knew that more than 10 years after the tidal wave, it was also the peak period for hunting. Although the tidal wave had passed, a large number of ominous creatures would stay in this sea area of the chaotic wasteland. These creatures would occasionally attack the city, but at that time, their numbers would not be as dense as now. Therefore, the 10 years after this war would be the 10 years when the people in the city cultivated the fastest. It was even to the extent that a small portion of people would save some purity stones for hunting. Of course, those 10 years would also be the most dangerous 10 years. In the 10 years after the tidal wave and the tidal wave, it was very easy for powerful creatures to be born among the ominous creatures, and even some creatures in the heaven-opening state would be born. After all, a large number of ominous creatures were not of the same species, and they would also devour each other. Therefore, in the 10 years after the war, only a small number of ominous creatures were killed by humans, and most of them were devoured by each other. In the end, these ominous creatures would form some relatively powerful ethnic groups, which would give birth to experts. The 2,000 kilometers outside the city were blocked, and the Venerables crazily attacked. This time, their purpose was to kill these ominous creatures, because the more they killed, the more resources they would get. The reason was that simple. If you didn't want resources, others would. When nearly 1 million Venerable State experts rushed over, this kind of war was like a collision of steel torrents. Someone cast a great technique to trap the ominous creatures and then purify them with clean stones. Someone was directly penetrated by a dazzling light, and a large amount of black mist entered his body. In the blink of an eye, he fell into madness and attacked his companions. Someone killed the ominous creatures, but died in the hands of others. Someone attacked fiercely and fought 3 in and 3 out. In fact, there were not many ominous creatures within a mere 2,000 kilometers. After a few rounds of attacks, the ominous creatures were all slaughtered. When the army retreated, the city guards set up clean stones and water mines again, and Han Fei reactivated the Great Array to trap a large number of ominous creatures again. Just like that, after repeating this process twice, a loud bang was heard, and the tidal wave finally came crashing down. A large amount of black mist directly enveloped the entire mountain city. The guards all shouted, "Everyone, don't attack." The city-protecting Great Array was divided into 3 layers. The first layer was 2,000 kilometers away, and this Great Array would inevitably be broken, because the coverage was too large, and the larger the coverage, the more clean stones would be consumed. Therefore, the outermost Great Array would only last for 2 hours. And the duration of the tidal wave would be as long as 2 days or so. An hour later, puff, 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 suddenly, someone shouted, "Look, the first layer of the city-protecting Great Array has opened." The guard captain shouted, "All troops, prepare to attack." When the first layer of the city-protecting Great Array was breached, it meant that this Great Array was not far from collapsing. And as more and more breaches appeared, more and more ominous creatures would rush out from the breaches. Of course, there was also ominous aura rushing in this time. However, the amount of ominous aura was not very large. They could use the first layer of the city-protecting Great Array to launch the last round of attacks before it was broken. In the array, the army was charging. Outside the array, Han Fei tried to release his perception, only to find that once his soul touched this overwhelming ominous aura, it would be melted. Half an hour later, just as the first layer of the Great City Barrier Formation was about to be riddled with holes, suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the formation cracked. Something suddenly broke through the formation. It was a head that was more than 300 meters long. In the city, the kings who were not controlled by Han Fei all changed their expressions. Not good, there is a powerful ominous creature in this round. It's being born too fast. Han Fei's puppets all shouted at this moment, "All troops, retreat." Gotcha. The first layer of the array was collapsing rapidly. The city-protecting Great Array was collapsing faster and faster. If they were not careful, the mountain city would suffer heavy losses. Han Fei conservatively estimated that at least 10% of the population would be killed. And the Sword God and the others were still disguised as frogmen, so it was not very suitable for Han Fei to attack. Beside Xue Fei, Han Fei shouted, "Blast it out of the array." In the blink of an eye, Xue Fei's emperor might surged. He instantly slaughtered his way over with 1,000 purifying stones in hand. He blasted out with a single strike, blasting the snake head away. At the same time, Xue Fei also rushed out of the array and fell into the black ominous aura. Han Fei also wanted to take the opportunity to understand the strangeness of the ominous aura, so he also appeared outside the array. However, Xue Fei relied on the clean stones to resist the ominous aura. Han Fei's body was shrouded in holy light. This was the outbreak of the heavenly awakening divine technique. Countless strong masters in the mountain city were shocked. Could it be an ominous creature in the heaven-opening state? Chapter 2138. The reason why Han Fei wanted to enter the ominous mist in person was just to confirm his situation in the mist. He needed to prove that the Tianqi Great Path was really suitable for the chaotic wasteland. Because in the ominous fog, people were unable to penetrate their senses, because once their senses came into contact with it, they would be melted, and even their bodies would be affected. Therefore, even the various sovereigns could only see a faint glimmer of light in the dark fog. When Han Fei stepped into the ominous fog, he was surprised to find that the visibility was only about 10 meters. Everywhere was filled with the black fog. Xue Fei used the clean stone to illuminate the surroundings. Han Fei's body shone brightly like a bright moon in the darkness. Then Han Fei saw the dragon snake that was thousands of meters long. At that moment, information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Dark Een Snake, Filthy. Introduction: An ocean creature polluted by the ominous tide. Because it has swallowed countless ominous creatures, it has developed a consciousness and a strong desire to grow. It can swallow other people's negative emotions, affect other people's emotions, and stimulate the darkness in one's heart. Level 100 Quality: Primeval Alien Realm Sky Splitter Combat Techniques Tai in Muddy Water, Immortal Demon Body, Dark Tide, Uncontrollable Roar Collectible Pure Energy Crystal Not Absorbable Remarked Stained with Ominous Creatures. Don't touch it. Roar. Hardly had Han Fei read the message when he felt that his eardrums were vibrating. The Dark Een Snake was roaring uncontrollably at him. As a result, Han Fei's heart sank and he had the urge to wipe out the 10,000 scale tribe. He even thought of taking all the gains from the battle in Mountain City. However, Han Fei was new here. His goal in the chaotic wasteland was simple: kill the 10,000 scale clan and save the people. Also, kill the infamily and protect the chaotic sea. Therefore, there wasn't any darkness in Han Fei's heart. He was just a bit unsteady. Han Fei snorted and the Tianqi divine art fell from the sky. The Tianqi divine art was like an inextinguishable beam of light in the boundless dark mist. The beam of light fell in an instant. When the Heaven Awakening God art landed on the darkest Een Snake, it actually turned into a ball of black water. A black pillar of water blocked the Heaven Awakening God art. This should be the Dark Een Serpent's Moon Turbid Water avatar. It was as if evil energy was exploding. Of course, the lunar turbid water was constantly being purified. Obviously, the Heaven Awakening divine technique had an absolute suppression effect on even heaven-opening realm ominous lifeforms. However, Han Fei also discovered that the Dark Een Snake could actually absorb a large amount of ominous qi from the massive amount of ominous qi to replenish itself. Of course, the speed at which it was replenished was not as fast as its purification. However, Han Fei found that if he wanted to completely purify this thing in the tidal waves, he would have to consume at least 10,000 years of his lifespan. After all, they were both sky splitters, and they could absorb the ominous qi from the tidal waves. Instead of fighting head-on, Han Fei asked Xue Fei to form a barrier with the clean stone array, trying to envelop this place. Whoosh! When the black water ripples, each stronger than the last, burst out in the air, a large number of clean stones lost their luster and collapsed in an instant. Ha! Han Fei saw that as the ripples overlapped, the clean stones collapsed faster and faster. Tens of thousands of clean stones couldn't even resist one ripple. Besides, when the second ripple overlapped, tens of thousands of clean stones were not enough to resist it at all. The clean stone array was almost broken. With a flip of his hand, Han Fei added more than 1,000,000 purity stones, forming a super barrier in the middle of the tide. With a massive amount of clean stones and Han Fei's Heaven Awakening divine technique, the Dark Een snake in the Heaven Opening realm was finally suppressed. Millions of clean stones were almost used up. After Han Fei performed 5 Heavenly Awakening divine techniques in a row, the Dark Een snake in the Heaven Opening state was finally purified. After killing this Dark Een snake, Han Fei's heart trembled. 1,000,000 clean stones and a few Heaven Awakening divine techniques were actually not a lot at all. There were hundreds of thousands or even millions of Heaven Awakening divine techniques in the mountain city to resist the ominous creatures. How great would it be to kill an ominous creature in the Heaven Opening realm with the same consumption of clean stones? This was much easier than killing a normal Heaven Opening realm expert. Han Fei calculated that as long as he had enough clean stones, he could kill many ominous creatures in the Heaven Opening realm like the Dark Een snake by himself. The death of the Dark Een snake didn't show any celestial phenomenon. Maybe it was because of the tidal waves that the celestial phenomenon couldn't be shown. But the energy crystal Han Fei got was a bit extraordinary. It contained 180,000 wisps of chaotic energy, more than 100,000 ownerless souls, and more than 30,000 strands of ferocious qi. Its spiritual energy reached 10 million. If such an energy crystal was given to an ordinary person, it could be used until he became a venerable or even a king. This was the terrifying power of the Heaven Opening realm energy crystal. When Xue Fei and Han Fei returned to the mountain city, the first layer of the city defense array, which was riddled with holes, happened to shatter. When the ominous creatures and the tidal waves almost rushed to the edge of the city wall, the guard captains all shouted, "Activate the second layer of the city defense array." It was similar to the first layer of the city defense array. They kept using the method of catching turtles in a jar to surround a group of ominous creatures and began to kill them freely. Different from the first layer of the city defense array, which only lasted for 2 hours, this second layer lasted for a full 16 hours, and the number of clean stones burned was also astronomical. The land thousands of kilometers outside the city was covered with energy crystals. The third layer of the city defense array was the main city array. Unlike the previous 2 great formations, the main city's great formation had the most purity stones. But it still maintained the same method of catching turtles in a jar. This lasted for a full 2 days and 1 hour before the tidal waves slowly disappeared. During this period, Han Fei attacked a total of 6 times and killed 6 ominous creatures in the Heaven Opening realm. However, after the tidal waves, the battle didn't mean the end. Although the tidal waves disappeared for some reason, there was still a small amount of ominous aura remaining in the surrounding tens of thousands of kilometers or even more, and some ominous creatures were fighting. This was the time when the whole city was free to hunt. People were free to hunt ominous creatures. Anyway, no matter how they hunted, the amount they had to turn in was the same. During this period, the layer of energy crystals on the ground was left by the ominous creatures that were purified when the city defense array withstood the impact of the tidal waves. Ordinary people couldn't collect them. In the city lord's mansion, Han Fei said, "This is the tidal waves of the chaotic wasteland. Ominous creatures attack the city. Every 100 years, it will erupt. This time it's over, and it's time for you to leave." Han Fei said solemnly, "The chaotic wasteland is only a part of the East Sea. The East Sea is also only a part of the Sea realm. To put it bluntly, in the Sea world, sea expansion experts were like inauspicious creatures within the tide. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count them. In the Sea realm, the Sea Opening realm is just the beginning. How each of you walks on this path and how far you can walk on this path will depend on yourselves. But you have advantages, because you have lived for a long time and have a profound foundation, which is not comparable to the ordinary Sea Opening realm experts in the Sea realm." Hong Yu said, "I'm willing to follow your majesty. I, Hong Yu, will be the first to stay." Han Fei rolled his eyes at him. "Don't make trouble. The chaotic wasteland may be suitable for a small number of people, but it is definitely not suitable for most people." Then Han Fei said, "If you want to leave, enter Senior Tai Yuan's Origin Sea later. As long as you leave the chaotic wasteland, you will be free." Tai Yuan said leisurely, "Here, there are only a few people who can adapt to the chaotic wasteland. Besides, the scavenger city has been suppressing the human race. If you stay here, you will not only have no chance to make a name for yourself, but also have to tread on thin ice every day. Han Fei is right. You have to think about it carefully. The snow girl said, I will go with Senior Tai Yuan. In the sea realm, our strength is only ordinary. We must be careful. Becoming stronger and revitalizing the human race is our goal. Lu Li nodded. I agree. I will also go with Senior Tai Yuan. Lei Qing added, this is not a place for humans to stay for a long time. We shouldn't delay the human emperor's plan here. We must go. Huang Jie scoffed. Hey, in such a big world, it will be a big loss if we don't go out. Zhang Xuanyu said. Han Fei added, you have to go too. The scavenger city is not suitable for a human king to stay at all. I stay because I have a way to deal with it. If you stay, you will only hinder me. Lu Renquang added, it's time for us to seek a stronger path. Luo Xiaobai nodded. Yes, the sea expansion stage is just the beginning. We all have to embark on our own path. For a time, everyone expressed their opinions, which was exactly what Han Fei wanted. If they didn't go, they would be hindering him. In the end, Han Fei said, 10,000 races are fighting for hegemony. You and I are all human beings. What we are fighting for is the rise of the human race in this great world. I don't care what means you have or what means you use, but the human race is your root. If this root is destroyed and you and I die, there will be no human race in this world. So, take care of yourself on this trip. Chapter 2139. Behind the Tide. Billions of kilometers away from the mountain city, Han Fei bid farewell to the sword god and the others again. Han Fei gave each of them 10 million crystals and said, Seniors, I don't know when we can meet again. However, I believe that as long as we don't die, we will always rise. Whether it's the human race, the beasts, or the undersea humans, we will all rise in the sea realm. The sword god said, you must accumulate strength in the chaotic wasteland instead of fighting against the 10,000 Scales clan. After all, you should consider these things when you're strong enough. Han Fei nodded. Of course, although I'm proud of my strength, I'm not strong enough to challenge the emperor-level experts. Tai Yuan said, although you've embarked on the path of corpse puppets, you must not focus on this path. The path of corpse puppets is much weaker than your other paths. You must be careful. Han Fei cupped his hands. Thank you for your teachings, Senior Tai Yuan. Wang Yijin said, if we meet again, let's have a competition. Han Fei said with a smile, sure. Luo Xiaobai, Zhang Xuanyu, and Lu Renquang bid farewell to Han Fei in person. Luo Xiaobai said, I don't know if we can meet again. If there's a chance, I will leave some clues marked by thugs. If there's a chance, we can meet again in the future. Zhang Xuanyu's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. I'll do the same. Han Fei. If you can't defeat an emperor in the chaotic wasteland, you can leave the chaotic wasteland for a while and seek some opportunities. That should be the best choice for you. Lu Renquang said, then pay attention. You may find clues about me in places with delicious food. Also, we will definitely meet again. Han Fei said with a smile, of course. By the way, I have something for you. After that, Han Fei gave each of them a jade slip and a star shell, saying, 3 of my attacks are sealed in them. There are also some energy crystals, not many, only 1 million. It's not necessary to give them too much, which may even affect your growth. Luo Xiaobai and the others nodded. That was true. The more help Han Fei gave them, the less conducive it was for their growth. But this jade slip was great if it could only be used to save their lives. Luo Xiaobai said, I won't use it unless I have to. Senior Tai Yuan and the others are waiting for us. We can't stay in the chaotic wasteland for a long time. After the tidal wave, the scavenger city and its subordinate cities would definitely go on a rampage and hunt down the ominous lifeforms. Therefore, I have to take advantage of the time when all the big cities are gathering their resources to leave quickly. I have to return as well. Zhang Xuanyu took a breath and patted Han Fei on the shoulder. Next time we meet, guess if I can catch up with you. Han Fei smiled. I guess you can't. Tisk, After bidding farewell to Zhang Xuanyu and the others, the sword god and the others did not stop and left quickly. They were both at the heaven opening stage, so they were very decisive. They were not lovers, so there was no need for them to be reluctant to part. One day later, Mountain City. Han Fei sat in the Lord's mansion and looked at the statistics. The war against the tidal wave in Mountain City cost about 750 million clean stones in total. Plus the clean stones that the people in the city accumulated every day, the total number might reach about 900 million. But Han Fei actually only spent 600 million clean stones, so he should get 240 million energy crystals back. But not all of the money was his. There were at least more than 100 million energy crystals, which would go to the scavenger city. Among them, the amount of tribute was almost 100 million. This was decided by the ranking of the lords. Xue Fei's Mountain City ranked 80th, and the amount of tribute was as high as 80 million. If he spent more in the scavenger city, he would lose 100 million. Compared with the previous years, the advantage this time was that Han Fei didn't need to reward the 10,000 scale clan powerhouses. As for the rest of the sea opening stage powerhouses, because they were mainly outsiders, Han Fei would reward them with more than 10,000 energy crystals, which was already very good. The outsiders were here to seek refuge, and Mountain City protected them. It was already very generous to give them some resources as compensation for defending the city. At least the 10,000 scale clan always thought so. And this time, after eliminating all the factors, Han Fei collected a total of about 236 million energy crystals. After giving some to the sword god and the others, there were less than 190 million left. The combat power of Mountain City wasn't lost too much. 40292 venerables died, and 85,698 explorers died, for a total of 125,990 people. They accounted for less than 5% of the total population of Mountain City. After 100 years, with the accumulation of a large number of cultivation resources, these lost people would be quickly replenished. And in this tidal wave, the people who participated in the battle in Mountain City received an average of 198 energy crystals. The part that was handed over meant that each person received an average of 78 energy crystals. This number was very good. In the Lord's mansion, Han Fei was not in a hurry to use these resources. At this moment, the people were immersed in the joy of harvest. Suddenly, in the Lord's mansion, Xue Fei's voice sounded in the entire Mountain City. He said, "Everyone listen up. In the next 300 years, the tax on the sea area of Mountain City will be reduced from 50% to 30%. In the next 300 years, I will select some potential heavenly talents from the sea area of Mountain City to enter the city. The people in Mountain City will also be selected. So, in the next 300 years, you must work hard." Hiss, what? A full 20% tax reduction? 30% tax for 300 years? Sir Lord is so bold. In order to select some elites, you are willing to pay such a heavy price? Some people were shocked and couldn't help but feel excited. Tens of thousands of years? This is the first time. Does anyone remember when the last tax reduction was? Someone exclaimed, "That was more than 10,000 years ago." I think it's also to select talents. Many people secretly guessed, could it be that something big is going to happen in Scavenger City, and that's why there is this tax reduction? And this was exactly what Han Fei wanted. The reason why he wanted to reduce taxes was not to select talents. However, it could be used as a reason. Because every 100 years, the cities needed to send some talented, strong people to the Scavenger City. Mountain City didn't send many people every year, nor did it send many elites. However, this time, Han Fei had his own plan. Of course, the plan was only one of Han Fei's purposes. He couldn't control the more than 10,000 territories in the Scavenger City, so he could only make the people in the Mountain City live less oppressive lives. When Han Fei announced the tax reduction, there were still some people in the city who were not very excited. They looked puzzled. Suddenly reducing taxes? Nothing big is going to happen recently. But someone narrowed his eyes and thought, this is big news. I have to report it to the higher-ups. When Han Fei announced the tax reduction, He already knew that this news would soon spread throughout the scavenger city. Because such a low tax burden was rare, only a few cities had done it. When Xue Fei went to the scavenger city to report, he would definitely be questioned. That would be the time to launch this plan. A few days later, Little Sea Village. When Han Fei's 10,000 scales clan puppet came to report, Zhao Jing was dumbfounded. What? The tax is reduced by 30%? Master Messenger, is this true? Master Lord, you are going to select heavenly talents. How can it be false? In the next 300 years, your village should also work hard. Yes, thank you, Master Lord. Zhao Jing felt like she was dreaming. Her intuition told her that something was wrong this time. Is the Lord still alive? If he is alive, how can he not know about the death of the tax messenger? Not only did he not send people down to investigate, but he even reduced taxes by so much? But no matter what, this was a big event, a big happy event. Just when Zhao Jing was about to tell the villagers this good news, a voice suddenly sounded in her ear. Come to see me. Who is it? Zhao Jing's face changed drastically. When she scanned with her perception, she found that in her house, there was an unforgettable person. This person was none other than Han Fei. After a moment, Zhao Jing asked, Master Emperor, you haven't left yet? Han Fei said, how about 30% of the tax? Zhao Jing couldn't help but gasp. Did you do this, Master? Han Fei didn't answer, nor did he say much to Zhao Jing. He said, what I'm going to say next, only you can know. Do you dare to listen? Gulp. Zhao Jing couldn't help swallowing and said decisively, Master, please go ahead. Han Fei said, the mountain city is already in my hands, but this is far from enough. I can decide the tax of the sea area of the mountain city, but I can't affect the tax of other cities. Now, I need an identity of a heavenly talent, and the origin of this identity is in your Little Sea Village. Zhao Jing didn't quite understand. She said blankly, my Little Sea Village? Han Fei said, find me an identity that the whole village can accept. You are the only one who knows about this. Chapter 2140. Han Fei left a projection in the Little Sea Village. This projection had the strength of a cultivator in the Pioneer Sea realm, but he was only at the peak level of the Venerable realm. Han Fei chose to replace a cultivator at the peak level of the Venerable realm who had died hunting in recent years. Han Fei transformed into this person's appearance, used this person's name, Yi Fenglu, and lived in the Little Sea Village. The only thing Han Fei was dissatisfied with was his name. What the fuck are you? In this world where you can't even live a happy life, how can you be a playboy? Unfortunately, for his own plan, Han Fei had to use this name. On this day, outside the Little Sea Village, Han Fei's projection came to the entrance of the village. The chief guard, Zhou Hai, exclaimed, Yi Fenglu? Am I seeing things? Where the fuck have you been? What? Xiaoya is still alive? Fenglu? You're not dead? However, because Han Fei didn't have Yi Fenglu's memory, his face was cold and vigilant at the moment. Anyway, it wasn't the first time that Han Fei had put on an act. Seeing a large group of people rushing over, Han Fei drew his knife and shouted, Don't come over. Brother Yi, what's wrong with you? Feng, what's wrong with you? Don't tell me you've been infected by the ominous aura? As soon as he said this, many people became vigilant. Yes, after Yi Fenglu's team went out, none of them came back. Obviously, something happened to them. Why did he come back alone? Han Fei pretended to be nervous and said, I'm only a little familiar with this place. I don't know how I found my way here. Can anyone tell me who I am? Suddenly, the group of people all took a breath. Zhou Hai was surprised and couldn't help asking, Did you lose your memory? Someone was surprised. It seems that something happened to Brother Ye's team. Someone said, The point is, where did Fenglu come from? Someone asked, Where did you come from? Han Fei said, I came from an ice layer on a mountain 30 million kilometers away from here. Do you know me? At this time, Zhao Jing appeared. Leader, it's Yi Fenglu. He's not dead, but obviously he lost his memory. Village chief, Is Feng Lu suffering from an ominous aura? Zhao Jing pretended to look Han Fei up and down. After a moment of silence, she said, "Venerables would have gone crazy if they were contaminated by the ominous aura." Zhao Jing asked, "Did you experience the tidal wave a few days ago? You should have an impression of the tidal wave, right? It's just the black fog filling the air and a large number of undying creatures attacking?" Han Fei shook his head in confusion. While Zhou Hai and the others were shocked, Zhao Jing said decisively, "He must have accidentally entered some primitive cemetery." Primitive graveyard? Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. How did Yi Fenglu discover the entrance to the primitive cemetery? Zhao Jing asked again, "Where you came from, are there any powerful beings?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, they're just ordinary creatures. But I swallowed a drop of strange blood essence there." Zhao Jing, what? Han Fei pretended to be at a loss and undid his battle suit, only to see that his body was covered with dense scales. This 10,000 scale tribe? Zhou Hai and the others all changed their expressions, and some of them were even hostile. But Zhao Jing roared, "Shut up! He's not from the 10,000 scales clan. These scales look like the scales of a dragon." Zhao Jing couldn't help but snatch at Han Fei. Han Fei quickly retreated, but he could still fight back. Bam! Pushed back 100 kilometers, Han Fei was infuriated. "Why did you attack me?" Zhao Jing, "I was just testing it." Zhou Hai and the others asked, "Village chief, what happened?" Zhao Jing, "I'm not sure, but he must have swallowed some kind of treasure. His strength has skyrocketed. Look, he's already at the half-king realm. A half-king realm cultivator could resist my attack so easily. If he's in the sea expansion realm, I'm definitely no match for him." Hiss! The people of the little sea village all exclaimed. Even the village chief was no match for him? Zhao Jing deliberately asked, "Are you close to the sea expansion realm, but you can't find your memories, which hinders your progress?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." Seeing Han Fei and Zhao Jing putting on an act, Zhou Hai and the others couldn't help but be in a trance. They were easily fooled by the two of them. Sure enough, Zhou Hai and the others were all fooled. They all thought that Yi Fenglu was about to undergo a tribulation, but because he lost his memories, he had to go back to the little sea village to look for his memories. Wasn't it equivalent to picking up a king in the sea expansion realm for free? Immediately, Zhou Hai and the people who were familiar with Yi Fenglu all gathered around. They couldn't let go of such a strong master in the sea expansion realm. They thought that although Yi Fenglu had mutated, he was still a human after all. Since he was a human, he was one of their own. Everyone was very accepting of him. After all, they could accept him as an outsider. Why couldn't Yi Fenglu, who was a mutated human, accept him? The moment Han Fei successfully entered the little sea village, Han Fei quietly left in person. From today on, this matter was more or less settled. Next, Han Fei had to leave some time for himself. In the past few days, he had obtained too many resources. Except for giving a large amount of resources to Tai Yuan and the Sword God, he didn't leave much for Luo Xiaobai and the others. But in fact, Han Fei had already given them a lot. It was completely possible for them to develop at least 30,000 kilometers of the Origin Sea. If he really gave them a large amount of resources, how could they cherish the resources he got for free? And it would also be detrimental to their training and exploration in order to seek resources. Mountain City. Han Fei opened up an underground barrier under the Lord's mansion. He was going to cultivate here for 3 years, because after 3 years, according to the convention, it would be Xue Fei's turn to return to the Scavenger City to report. The lords of the Scavenger City would report once every 100 years, and during the rest of the time, they were happy and unfettered, so there were actually many people competing for the position of lord. Fortunately, although Xue Fei was in the lower middle level, he was relatively close to the middle level. Even if the lord was replaced, it would mainly be the lords behind him. Especially the lords outside the top 100, the possibility of being replaced was extremely high, and it was very difficult for them to sit for 10,000 years. The Origin Sea. Looking at the massive amount of energy crystals, Han Fei had no time to care about them now. because the previous batch of 40 million energy crystals hadn't been digested yet. Even the chaotic chi hadn't been completely transformed into immortal spiritual energy, let alone the ownerless souls. So, Han Fei opened up the origin sea with immortal spiritual energy while transforming the chaotic chi. Anyway, he had so much chaotic chi that he almost couldn't use it. When he didn't open up the origin sea, he was shocked. Han Fei expanded the origin sea every day, and after 10 years in a row, there were still as many as 420,000 strands of immortal spiritual energy in the origin sea. Previously, the 200 million strands of chaotic chi had been transformed into immortal spiritual energy, and he had consumed 7 million strands, only to open up 50,000 kilometers of the origin sea. So far, Han Fei's origin sea was only a little more than 180,000 kilometers, less than 190,000 kilometers. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He really admired people like Bei Luochen, Sherpa Wang, and He Daoyuan. For more than 100,000 years, they probably did nothing but cut open the endless void to absorb chaotic chi every day, right? Otherwise, how could they expand the origin sea to more than 200,000 kilometers? Han Fei estimated that the remaining immortal spiritual energy should not be enough to expand the origin sea to 200,000 kilometers, so he simply gave up. So he finally remembered the massive number of ownerless souls in the origin sea. In fact, Han Fei felt that he had taken action too early. He shouldn't have taken Xue Fei's 40 million energy crystals. Those were all saved by Xue Fei himself, so the quality was excellent. Most of them were venerable energy crystals. In fact, the composition of this batch of energy crystals he collected was mainly calculated according to the overall strength structure of the mountain city. If there were more venerables in the city, then there would be more venerable energy crystals. If there were more explorers, then there would be more explorer-level energy crystals. Obviously, there were relatively fewer venerables in the mountain city. Of course, Han Fei didn't mind having more low-level energy crystals at all. It must be noted that even a low-level energy crystal could contain 1 or 2 strands of chaotic chi and 7 or 8 ownerless souls. 1 or 2 might not be a big deal at all, but when the number rose to 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000, he might as well try again. Han Fei didn't even dare to use the heaven-opening energy crystals. Such high-end goods were hard to come by in 100 years. He didn't mind using them up. Han Fei looked at the energy crystals. Even though he had given out nearly 50 million, there were still 180 million energy crystals left. He felt that he wouldn't be able to use them in a short time. Because Han Fei felt that he might not be able to absorb so many ownerless souls. 40 million energy crystals, even if one of them only contained 10 ownerless souls, would be as much as 400 million. Besides, these high-quality energy crystals contained even more ownerless souls. But what about himself? His soul was only more than 2 million, which was obviously a huge gap compared to hundreds of millions of ownerless souls. It was a pity that it had only been 5 years since the last Void Temple gathering, and there was still a long way to go before the next one. It didn't seem appropriate for his teacher to ask his senior brothers and sisters from the Void Temple for help. Therefore, Han Fei could only look through Xue Fei's memories again. Of course, Han Fei could also ask Old Yuan, but Old Yuan was not much better than Xue Fei. He was always sleeping, and to be honest, his understanding in this regard was not necessarily better than Xue Fei's. Han Fei had a lot of doubts when he took a look at it. After a moment, isn't the Taoist heart strong enough and the soul power endless? Why can't I absorb them after a certain level? Chapter 2141. From Xue Fei's memory, Han Fei found that they were also troubled by this problem. In the energy crystals, there were a large number of ownerless souls. Theoretically, cultivators would be overjoyed to see ownerless souls, because this was free soul power that could be easily assimilated into one's own. However, although Xue Fei was confused about how to use these ownerless souls, Han Fei discovered another problem. That was, whether in the explorer realm or the heaven-opening realm, their ownerless souls were basically the same. A little bit of soul in the heaven-opening realm and a little bit of soul in the explorer realm were essentially the same. The difference was that the heaven-opening realm could integrate the aura of the Great Way and the soul combat skills, so the soul could be used very efficiently. This was also the fundamental reason why the ownerless souls could be directly absorbed. And Han Fei didn't really confirm this until today. The essence of the soul was the same, so the quantity became the decisive factor in the strength of the soul. The old turtle said before that the Taoist heart determined the upper limit of the soul. However, now that he thought about it, this statement was not completely correct. Because the power of Xue Fei's soul was actually lower than his, only about 2 million. At first, he thought that Xue Fei's Taoist heart was not strong enough. But after reading Xue Fei's memory, he found that it was not that Xue Fei's Taoist heart was not strong enough, but when his soul power reached about 2 million, his body would reject the ownerless souls, and his body would be completely unable to keep up with the rhythm of the soul. Han Fei's understanding was that the strength of the soul was too high, but the body was not strong enough. Perhaps his soul had already reacted, but his body needed a much longer time to react. This led to a complete imbalance between the soul and the physique. The stronger the soul, the less useful the physique would be. The imbalance between the two brought great pressure to cultivation. As for the solution, the most basic solution was to temper the body and cultivate the path of the physical body. The stronger the body, the higher the upper limit of the soul. The more harmonious the body and soul were, the better it would be. Han Fei looked at the ownerless souls. He was tempted. He felt that even if his body and soul were not compatible, he had to improve his soul to the highest peak it could reach at present. After all, he was a body cultivator, and body refinement was his basic skill. However, even if he used the void heaven-observing art to cultivate his divine soul, it would not be as fast as directly obtaining it. Thus, another 3 years later, when Han Fei felt that the power of his soul seemed to be directly expelled from his body, he had to wake up from seclusion. He felt that the world was different. Even if the power and soul of a cultivator can be improved, it needs to be a steady improvement so that the body and soul can slowly accept themselves as they become stronger and stronger. But if you become too strong all of a sudden, it's difficult for you to control this power at once. It's a bit like pulling up seedlings to help them grow. You have to take time to digest this improvement. Although your cultivation speed was fast before, it was not to this extent. You used to grow fast, but you also had a lot of experience in battles. But now, Han Fei asked, so it's mainly because I improved too fast, and my body can't accept such a big improvement. Old Yuan nodded. Besides, although my Taoist heart determines the upper limit of soul power, the upper limit of soul power shouldn't be like this. But the upper limit of the divine soul should not be like this. Ownerless souls are good things, but if you absorb so many ownerless souls at once, even if they have been assimilated by you, your control will be greatly reduced. For example, after you cultivate hard, you can only control 100 points of your soul. If your soul suddenly becomes 200 points, but your control doesn't change, then you won't be able to control these 200 points well. Instead, it will go out of your control. Hearing the old turtle's explanation, Han Fei immediately understood. It meant that not only was he too hasty, but he also didn't have enough control. In short, he was not steady enough. The old turtle said again, the body may be related to the soul, but I don't know. I have never received so many ownerless souls before, and I have never felt the pain you are feeling now. Han Fei asked, then what should I do now? The old turtle said, maybe you should cultivate your body? Han Fei rolled his eyes. What's the difference between what you said and what you didn't say? I also know how to cultivate my body. Now it seemed that the strength of the body definitely limited the strength of the soul. The body was equivalent to a container, and it could hold as much soul as possible. Once it exceeded the limit, the soul would be out of his control, and if the container was too full, it would overflow. Therefore, he should actually take it step by step and not be greedy all at once. But when Han Fei tried to continue to mobilize his body, he keenly discovered that in his body, two completely different spiritual veins began to circulate slightly. The circulation speed was very slow, but they did circulate. The primordial vein and the pulse of eternal darkness are moving? When the two spiritual veins moved, Han Fei's soul seemed to have a chance to relax, and he immediately sat back in his body. He didn't feel very comfortable before the two spiritual veins moved, but now that the two spiritual veins were flowing, Han Fei felt that they seemed to be adjusting the relationship between his body and soul. One day later, Han Fei made a weird discovery. The power of his soul was slightly reduced, but his strength was increased. Han Fei wasn't sure if it was an illusion, so he waited a few more days. As a result, every day his soul power would decrease a little and his strength would increase a little. Wow! These two spiritual veins are balancing the relationship between the body and the soul. But this speed is a bit too slow, isn't it? Han Fei pondered for a moment and calculated according to this speed. According to this speed, he could only transform 365 points of soul power in a year. Even if the Origin C sped up 256 times, he could only transform 93,440 points of soul power and power in a year. In other words, in 256 years, he could only transform less than 100,000 points of soul power and power. Thinking of this, Han Fei didn't feel good. Sure enough, it felt good for a while, but when it came to stabilizing his cultivation, it wouldn't feel good anymore. It would take a lot of time to erase the imbalance between the body and the soul. 3 years passed in the outside world. Han Fei had been cultivating for 768 years, and he had finally improved the imbalance between his physical body and soul. Although it was still unbalanced, the situation was much better than before. Now, he looked at his information again. Owner Han Fei level greater than 101, sky opening. C 10,000 family tree greater than 360,201, evolving. 26, 8002, chaotic energy 1. 2 million, spiritual power 3196012, perception range 3. 5 million kilometers, power 1866862 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 94, second spiritual beast, emperor sparrow, level 99, main arts time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. Han Fei thought to himself, fortunately, I can accelerate time. Otherwise, it would take me at least thousands of years to balance the soul power that has been improved in just a few years. Of course, there were also benefits, that is, both his soul power and pure physical strength had been greatly improved. Han Fei sensed it. Although he couldn't exert 100% of this body's combat power, he could barely exert 70%, which was no weaker than before. And once his soul power and physical strength were completely balanced, when he could exert 100% of his combat power, his comprehensive strength would still soar. Therefore, he didn't lose anything this time. Chapter 2142. Because there were still a lot of ownerless souls in the Origin Sea, Han Fei gave some to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, little fatty, little gold, little black, little white, and the emperor sparrow. However, the amount would not be too much, only around 100,000 or so. If he gave them too much, he was afraid that they would walk down the same path as him. They didn't have the bloodline of beginning or the bloodline of eternal darkness, so it would be detrimental to their growth if they devoured too much. Before going to the scavenger city, Han Fei still needed to make some preparations. After all, there were venerable sovereigns in the scavenger city. If the Supreme Venerable noticed him, Han Fei wasn't sure whether he would be discovered or not. Therefore, it was time to deduce the sky deception technique again. Although he had already learned the shape-shifting technique, which was a divine technique, the most important thing was that it could change into a myriad of forms. Although its grade was very high, it was difficult to guarantee that it would not be discovered by others. After all, its main function was ever-changing. However, the heaven-deceiving art was different. It was a great art that imitated the aura of another's soul through one's appearance, voice, aura, karmic luck, pressure, grand Tao, and so on. Only by combining the follow-up technique of the sky deception art with the infinite transformation art could Han Fei feel more at ease. Last time, the heaven-deceiving technique was deduced to the limit of the demon purification pot. Later on, when the new little vine returned, the upper limit must have been raised. Besides, the deduction of the sky deception technique only required 500 wisps of chaotic energy, which was totally dispensable for Han Fei now. Deduce. After a while, information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Heaven Fusion Technique, World Opening Grade. Introduction. Based on the sky deception art, you borrow the heavenly Tao and fuse it into your body. Through facial features, voice, aura, luck, pressure, great Tao, and other great techniques to imitate the aura of other people's souls. The Heaven Fusion art used the great Tao to protect one's body. It could confuse the other party's mind and deceive them. Deduction. Heavenly Concealment Divine Art Deduction Consumption. 3,000 strands of immortal chi. When Han Fei saw the sky fusion technique clearly, he was still attracted by the heavenly concealment divine technique. The sky fusion technique itself seemed to be based on the sky deception technique and integrated the way of heaven into it, so its level jumped to the heaven opening realm. However, the level of the heaven fusing technique was not very high in the heaven opening realm, so Han Fei had to continue deducing it. Continue the deduction. Once again, information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Heavenly Concealing Divine Art, Heaven Opening Supreme Quality. Introduction. On the basis of the Heaven Fusion Technique, it completely borrows the laws of the heavenly path and fuses it into one's body. He used the laws of the heavenly Tao to simulate one's appearance, voice, body, aura, karmic luck, pressure, and the great Tao. The heavenly invisibility technique could conceal one's true strength. The heavenly concealment divine art used the laws of the grand Tao as its foundation, completely imitating the heavenly Tao in nature. When others looked at it, it was as if they were looking at the heavenly Tao, and they wouldn't think it was fake. Derivation, unknown deduction consumption, 100,000 strands of immortal spiritual energy. Note. You have reached the current deduction limit of the demon purification pot. Deducing it again will involve the mysteries of nature and will damage the demon purification pot. When he saw the heavenly invisibility technique, he knew that it should be enough. This was already the limit of the devil purification pot's deduction. To put it bluntly, since the heavenly hiding divine skill was called a divine skill, it was very likely that this skill had reached the level of Venerable Emperor or even higher. The birth of a heaven opening technique was not necessarily the result of a heaven opening technique. Most of them were the product of the comprehension of stronger experts. With the double protection of the heavenly hiding divine skill and the shape-shifting technique, Han Fei believed that even venerable emperors might not be able to detect him. Of course, nothing was absolute. He still had to keep some tricks up his sleeves. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, during this trip to the scavenger city, I will completely seal you in my sea of consciousness. When I talk to you, you can respond. But most of the time, don't make any unusual movements. If someone notices you, the consequences will be unimaginable." The old turtle asked, "Are you really going to the scavenger city alone? Doesn't that mean the 10,000 Scales clan is extremely unfriendly to humans?" Han Fei sneered. "I'm going exactly because the 10,000 Scales clan is unfriendly. As a human, how can I be inferior to others? Enslaved by other races? Of course, this trip is mainly a test. Before my strength recovers to its peak, I won't act rashly." The old turtle said, "Your strength and knowledge of the sea realm are actually not much less than mine. Perhaps what you lack is only some words of experience. When you arrive at Scavenger City, you can learn more about things related to cultivation experience. In order not to be discovered, I'd better sleep." Han Fei nodded. "That's good. I'll call you when I go to the Divine and Demon Sea." In the mountain city, Han Fei gave Hongyu a lot of ownerless souls. Of course, there were also some energy crystals for cultivation. After explaining the disadvantages of ownerless souls to Hongyu, Han Fei said, "This time, while I'm in the scavenger city, the only thing you need to do is to cultivate. My goal is the entire scavenger city, but not just the scavenger city. Your strength is too weak. Your top priority is to improve to the heaven opening realm." Gulp. Hongyu was shocked. "Yes, Your Majesty. I, Hongyu, will try my best to cultivate." With so many resources, I'm confident that I can quickly expand the Origin Sea to the limit. Han Fei nodded slightly. In addition, you only need to secretly control the mountain city. If it's not necessary, don't show up and don't contact others. Yes, Your Majesty. In fact, Hong Yu was obsessed with refining corpses, which was his path. There was nothing wrong with his belief. With a large number of resources and ownerless souls, it was only a matter of time for Hong Yu to expand the Origin Sea to 100,000 kilometers. It would be completed in 100 years at most. By then, Hong Yu would be of great use. After talking to Hong Yu, Han Fei officially came out of seclusion. In a training field outside the Lord's mansion, Xue Fei had already selected 802 strong people in the past 100 years. These people would be sent to the scavenger city. Among these 802 people, there was no king. As for Chen Qing and Su Mao, the two kings of the human race, Han Fei didn't intend to give them a chance to go to the scavenger city. The human race in the scavenger city was already weak. If these two people were really sent to the scavenger city, they would most likely become slaves of other races. Even if they could accept this kind of thing, Han Fei wouldn't accept it. And these two people, because they failed again, didn't dare to leave at will, so they had been staying in the mountain city. Xue Fei glanced at these two people's houses, and he said indifferently, "You two have average aptitude. Go back to where you came from and dig the clean stones. If there are better seedlings in the future, send them to the mountain city." Chen Qing and Su Mao immediately got up and hurriedly responded, "Yes, Lord." Hearing that Xue Fei personally drove them away, the two of them were relieved, mainly because Han Fei had vaguely revealed some news to them before. In the next 300 years, taxes would be reduced by 30%, and the human race would usher in 300 years of development. They thought it would be better to go back and help the human race become stronger. In the training field, Xue Fei descended, and under the pressure, more than 800 people all lowered their heads, not daring to look directly at him. Xue Fei shouted, "Today, 802 of you will follow me to the scavenger city. Let me say the ugly words first. You can die, but you can't lose the face of my mountain city. You can't lose the face of this emperor. Otherwise, even if you are in the scavenger city, I still have ways to make you beg for death." "Yes, Lord, we will not fail our mission." Xue Fei nodded slightly. When you go to the scavenger city, no matter whether you can expand the sea or get an important position in the future, you must know that your roots belong to the mountain city. If you don't want to be suppressed by the other branches, stick together. The competition in the scavenger city will only be more cruel than in the mountain city. Everything is for the best. Han Fei, as Xue Fei, said a few words casually. Among these people, there were only a few humans. The reason why there were so few people was because their minds had been enslaved. Because their thoughts had already been enslaved. They only wanted to enter Scavenger City and be chosen by experts. They wanted to become experts under their tutelage. But in fact, if you can't keep your heart pure, it is almost impossible to become a real strong. Therefore, Han Fei directly gave up on these people and let them be in this batch of people. And Han Fei clearly knew that it would be good if half of these people who were sent to the scavenger city could survive in the end. Most people would die during training, during the battles with Wanderer City, or during the trials of the primitive graveyard. Half a month later, Xue Fei led Han Fei to a magnificent giant city spanning 100,000 kilometers. The buildings and walls of this giant city were all made of black crystal and inlaid with pure stone. The city gate was more than 600 meters high and magnificent. Because it was after the tidal wave, Han Fei could see scavenger squads coming out of this scavenger city from time to time. And Han Fei was not in the human form, but Yen Dong, Xue Fei's right-hand man and the second in command of the mountain city. His strength was at the peak of the sea expansion stage. "Oh, old Xue, you're a little late." "Old Xue, I heard that the taxes of your mountain city have been reduced by 20%. You're really bold. What's going on? What are you planning?" Before Han Fei entered the city, he heard someone talking to Xue Fei. Looking around, it turned out to be a group of mountain palaces in the city. Xue Fei smiled slightly. Blindly pressuring is not a good strategy. What plan can I have? I just want to give them a few years. I will sacrifice a few gains now, but when the time comes, I will only gain more. Chapter 2143. In the mountain palace, Han Fei read the faces of the few people who were joking with Xue Fei from afar from Xue Fei's memory. Among them, a sturdy, slightly chubby lord was Zhang Wei of the number 68 farm. He was in the middle of the lords of the city of scavengers. However, this man had climbed all the way from the number 109 farm. He had once attacked the emperor of the city of wanderers with Xue Fei. Xue Fei was appointed as the lord of the number 80 farm because he killed a heaven-opening state cultivator in that battle. This man was very cunning. The other one was Long Yunfeng of the number 72 farm. He was ruthless, bad-tempered, and irritable. He had hunted with Xue Fei and Zhang Wei before. Of the remaining two, one was Xue Fei's best friend, and the other was Chou Chen from the number 101 breeding farm who came to Mountain City to borrow resources before the tide wave. Xue Fei was not familiar with him at all. Xue Fei didn't know this man at all, and he didn't know why he came to borrow resources from him, so he refused. He didn't expect this man to be here too. The last one was Zhang Li of the number 86 farm. He was quite familiar with Xue Fei. They had explored the primitive graveyard many times and were close to each other. He should be the closest to Xue Fei in this group. Han Fei frowned. Han Fei's heart did a flip. How did these four people get together? Xue Fei showed his lord token at the gate of the city of scavengers. Immediately, the sea-opening state guards all bowed their heads. Yes, lord. But after showing the token, Xue Fei came to the mountain palace where they were in a few steps. Xue Fei said to Chou Chen, "Brother Chou, did you borrow the resources? I'm really short of resources, or I would have helped you." Chou Chen snorted in his heart. "Help my ass. You greeted me with a smile in your city, but when it comes to resources, you always say that I'm short of resources. If it weren't for the situation, I really wouldn't want to see this guy." Chou Chen laughed dryly and replied, "Brother Xue, you don't have to worry about it. Brother Long has lent me a portion of it. My farm 101 has barely survived the crisis." Xue Fei couldn't help glancing at Long Yunfeng. In Xue Fei's memory, Long Yunfeng and Chou Chen should be completely unrelated, right? Also, it was strange for them to gather together today. Why did they bring Chou Chen along? Xue Fei could not help but say, "Old Zhang, Yunfeng, brotherly. Why are you guys so carefree today? Who are you waiting for?" "Zhang Li, you still can't tell? We were waiting for you." Han Fei was surprised. Why were these people waiting for Xue Fei? How did they know he was coming today? Zhang Wei said, "Old Xue, I was wondering why you're so late this time. We've been waiting for you for 5 days." Xue Fei was surprised. "You guys were waiting for me? Did I hear that right? When did I, Xue Fei, become so important? Why are you guys waiting for me here?" At this moment, Long Yunfeng, who looked cold, said resolutely, "We were waiting for you to hunt. More than 20 years ago, we agreed to do something big again. This time, the opportunity has come." Having no time to read Xue Fei's memory, Han Fei's eyes lit up and he asked in a low voice, "Oh? What opportunity?" Long Yunfeng took a deep look at Xue Fei and then at Chou Chen. "Wasn't Brother Chou's farm 101 hunted? It was said that Brother Chou was plotted against because he wanted to be promoted. But in fact, that was not the case." "Oh." Han Fei was intrigued. "Is there a secret behind this?" Zhang Wei and Long Yunfeng both couldn't help but look at Xue Fei, thinking, "You refused so quickly that Chou Chen didn't even tell you about it." Both of them were speechless. "Couldn't you have refused him more slowly? If it weren't for us, Chou Chen wouldn't have taken you with him." Han Fei, on the other hand, looked at Chou Chen and guessed the reason immediately. It turned out that Xue Fei and Chou Chen had set up this trap to bury the hatchet. Chou Chen said, "Brother Xue, you are all famous hunters. It's not the first time that you've teamed up, and a lot of strong masters have been killed by you. What I'm talking about must be done by experienced hunters." "I'd like to hear the details." Xue Fei seemed to have completely forgotten the grudges between him and Chou Qin and listened attentively. Zhang Wei glanced at Han Fei, who had transformed into Yen Dong, waved his hand, pushed Han Fei away, and sealed this place. Han Fei frowned. Interesting. It seems to be a big deal. Zhang Wei said, Old Xue, only the 5 of us know what's going to happen next. Although Yen Dong is your right-hand man, he can't participate in this matter. Han Fei sneered in his heart. I'm everywhere. This Xue Fei is now my incarnation. You're welcome to tell me secrets. Unexpectedly, he had just arrived at Scavenger City and but had not even warmed up yet when such a big thing happened. Chou Qin said, the tax emissary of the number 101 farm was not killed by the same race. Someone from the primitive city took action. Xue narrowed his eyes. The primitive city? Zhang Li said, Old Xue, don't be surprised. In fact, this time, not only the tax emissaries of Brother Chao's number 101 farm died. Even on my side, 2 groups of tax emissaries were killed. At first, we suspected that it was the people from the Wanderer City who did it. After all, it's also true that we raised humans to mine for us. However, Brother Chou was careful. Zhang Li's words gave Han Fei valuable information, which was that the hostility of the Wanderer City to the Scavenger City came from the Scavenger City's enslavement of humans. Chou Qin nodded. I was watched by a heaven creator from the primitive city, but he didn't know that I had an incarnation. I secretly intercepted one of them, and after searching his soul, I found that these people turned out to be from the primitive city. From that person's memories, I learned that they seemed to be secretly searching for a primitive graveyard. I don't know how, but they actually found my place. Han Fei asked, since they were secretly looking for it, why did they attack the tax emissaries? Chou Qin answered, soul search. They attacked the tax emissaries just to search their souls. The tax emissaries are the most familiar with the farm. If they want to know information about the farm, it's best to search the tax emissaries' souls. There are some things that I have to tell you. My number 101 farm did find a place that looked like a primitive cemetery but was very likely to be the starting ground. Because of this, none of my tax emissaries were left, and my 100 years of pure stone income was looted. I have to take revenge. What? The starting ground? Han Fei's heart did a flip. He couldn't help but think of the chaotic ocean. Just before the tidal wave, he and the others left the chaotic ocean. Just after he and the others left, someone from the primitive city came to investigate and did not hesitate to sweep the tax emissaries of a city to find the target. Could it be that they came for the chaotic ocean? Or did they touch something when they came out and let the people from the primitive city find out? If they were really here for the chaotic Azure Sea, then the identity of this group of Origin City's experts would probably be obvious. Except for the Yin family, Han Fei couldn't think of any other family. Outside the palace, Han Fei couldn't help narrowing his eyes slightly. Could it be that the exit of the chaotic ocean was not the only one, and there was also one in the number 101 farm? The starting ground. These people from the sea realm were persistent in their pursuit of the starting ground. A starting ground represented a large number of rich resources. Moreover, from Xue Fei's memory, Han Fei found that they were persistent in the starting ground not only because of the resources of the starting ground. It was also because of the origin of the Great Way of the starting ground, which was the foundation of the survival of living beings. People born in the starting ground would not want to destroy this world, but it didn't matter to outsiders. In order to become stronger, the outsiders were willing to go to any lengths. In fact, this kind of origin of the world would not allow them to have an extremely explosive improvement. But if too many people stole the origin, this world would slowly lose its vitality and eventually collapse. Therefore, when Chou Qin mentioned this, Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Now, Chou Qin only found him and the others, and the situation had not expanded. He had to find a way to stall them. Fortunately, the Beast King was still guarding the chaotic ocean. When the time came, he had to find a way to bring these people over and then kill them all. Han Fei couldn't help saying, the starting ground? How many people know such a big thing now? Seeing that Xue Fei was spirited, Zhang Wei, Long Yunfeng, and the others also smiled slightly, knowing that this guy couldn't help it. Cho Chen said, I only found some clues now, but I can't completely confirm that it is the starting ground. It's because these people from the primitive city took action that I have some clues. This matter, I temporarily said to the outside world, is that the people from the Wanderer city took action. However, there will definitely be people who doubt it. Therefore, we have to attack quickly and divide the starting ground first. However, before dividing the starting ground, we have to first get rid of those people from the primitive city, otherwise it will be very easy for this matter to be leaked. Han Fei asked, You searched the souls of the people from the primitive city, how could they not notice? Cho Chen said, I cut off that person's memory. Not only that, I also inserted some other memories, which are the hints of the location of the starting ground. In the past 3 years, I deliberately patrolled the surroundings, and those people dare not act rashly for the time being. But I came to the scavenger city to report, while I am not here, they will definitely take action. Han Fei couldn't help but be a little puzzled. Why did Cho Chen find 5 people to divide the starting ground? Seeming to see Han Fei's doubts, Cho Chen said, if the primitive city really wants to take action, there will not be only one heaven opening state. So, this matter can't be done alone. When Han Fei heard this, although he felt that something was not quite right on the surface, he still reacted quickly and said, Then what are you waiting for? Wait for me to hurry up and report, we can set off immediately. Brother Cho, if this matter succeeds, consider it that I, Xue Fei, owe you a favor. Chapter 2144. They were waiting for Xue Fei, not because Xue Fei was strong, but because Xue Fei's great path was different. This guy walked on the path of nightmare, which was very similar to Xia Zhimeng's great path, but he was definitely stronger than Xia Zhimeng. Last time, Han Fei and Wang Yijin killed Xue Fei instantly, so this guy didn't have the chance to show his great path. However, in group battles, this great path was very strong. If the opponent made any mistake and was dragged into a dream by Xue Fei, or even obtained the information of the source object, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, this was the real reason why they were waiting for Xue Fei. At this time, Zhang Wei said, Okay, old Xue, go and report your work. Brother Li is closest to Brother Cho. In order to avoid being noticed, let's meet at Brother Li's place in half a month. This matter has been settled. See you in half a month. Old Zhang, you're a good brother. I owe you a favor today. Brother Cho, no matter whether this matter is settled or not, I will do you a favor. Only then did Cho Chen's expression relax a little. He said, Brother Xue is generous. I won't stand on ceremony then. Ha! Zhang Wei and Long Yunfeng had obviously reported their work. Besides, Han Fei could guess that the reason why they dared to wait here so openly must be because they wanted to be peacemakers for Xue Fei and Cho Chen. It was not difficult for people to know that Xue Fei refused Cho Chen, and Zhang Wei, Long Yunfeng, and Zhang Li were familiar with Xue Fei. It was indeed a good idea for them to be peacemakers. Therefore, the meeting of these people would not attract the attention of others. It could even be said that the others might not even care. Because even Zhang Wei was only ranked 68th in the scavenger city. In the eyes of some strong people, this ranking barely reached the middle. There were many heaven-opening realm powerhouses who didn't think highly of them. The relationship between cultivators was just like how scholars despised each other. There were pitifully few people who had true feelings for each other. To outsiders, they might be united against a common enemy. But internally, it was hard to say. After Zhang Wei and the others left, Xue Fei stood up. There was no strange expression on his face. In fact, as a puppet, everything about him was controlled by Han Fei. When Han Fei didn't control it, he just maintained his original appearance. After all, the strong always kept a straight face, so no one could see anything wrong with him. The scavenger's city spanned hundreds of thousands of miles. The mountain temple where Han Fei was located was a gathering place for strong masters near the main city gate, but generally, there wouldn't be too many heaven-opening realm masters coming here. The core area of this city was naturally the 10,000 Scales tribe's sacred land where Emperor 10,000 Scales was located. Outside of the 10,000 Scale clan's sacred land, there were a few big clans of the 10,000 Scale clan. Only 10 clans could be ranked as a big clan in the Scavenger City, which were the top 10 farms. It was said that the 10 Great Lords' strength had all reached the peak of the heaven opening stage. Han Fei didn't know whether there was a limit to this peak. However, he was sure that these people were very strong. Each of them was stronger than all the other emperors that Han Fei had met so far, except for King Wu and Xia Hongzhu. In addition to the 10 Great Lords, there were also some extremely powerful emperors that didn't belong to the family system. For example, the law enforcer of the Scavenger City, Zhao Honghuang. The person that Han Fei was going to report to was Zhao Honghuang. This person's strength was unfathomable. It was said that he was already above the 10 Great Lords. The reason why he could become the law enforcer was that he was an itinerant cultivator. He didn't like to stick to the trivial matters of the family. The one that was left in the Scavenger City was an incarnation that everyone knew. No one knew where his real body was. Even this incarnation had also reached the heaven opening stage, and it was said that it was also comparable to the 10 Great Lords. Therefore, this person was known as one of the 2 divine generals of the Scavenger City, second only to Emperor 10,000 Scales. In addition to the 2 divine generals, there was another person named Zhang Beihai. This person rarely appeared in the Scavenger City. It seemed that his main battlefield was in the boundless mining area. That was to say, the unknown mining area could only be reached by crossing the Divine and Demon Sea. Inside the Scavenger City, there was a small city in the city called the City of Law Enforcement. This was the place where the law enforcers of the Scavenger City stayed. To become a law enforcer here, the lowest level was the sea opening stage. Outside the City of Law Enforcement, Han Fei showed his identity, and someone immediately recognized Xue Fei. A sea opening stage expert said, "Lord, our Lord is not in seclusion. You can go directly." Xue Fei nodded slightly, and Han Fei followed Xue Fei in, which showed his respect for the law enforcer. A moment later, outside a very ordinary undersea jungle, Xue Fei cupped his fists and said, "Lord Honghuang, Xue Fei, the Lord of the number 80 farm of the Scavenger City, is here to report to you." His voice spread out, and a moment later, an indifferent voice sounded, "Come in." Xue Fei kept a straight face, lowered his body, and walked in. Han Fei, who was pretending to be Yen Dong, lowered his head. He followed Xue Fei here, and it was not easy for him to see Zhao Honghuang, let alone raise his head. A moment later, Han Fei saw a 10,000 scale clan expert whose scales were completely jade-like on a blue stone made of seaweed. This man was Zhao Honghuang. When Han Fei saw the degree of jade-like on his body, he was shocked. He had only made his bones jade-like. However, this man's scales had been jade-like, which meant his physique was stronger than his. Besides, even though this man didn't move or open his eyes, Han Fei already felt the overwhelming pressure of a master, which Han Fei hadn't felt for a long time. Xue Fei said, "Lord Honghuang, this tide wave consumed more than 800 billion clean stones. Excluding the 100 million clean stones that were provided for free at the beginning, there were about 150 million energy crystals left. This time, a venerable died. In addition, this time, the mountain city brought 802 venerable heavenly talents. Should I send them to the law enforcement camp or?" At this time, Zhao Honghuang slowly opened his eyes, which seemed to be infinitely deep, as if he wanted to see through Xue Fei. Han Fei was also worried that Xue Fei would see through him, so he didn't dare to raise his head. He was ready to merge with Xue Fei at any time. However, Zhao Honghuang didn't find anything wrong with Xue Fei. He asked lightly, "I heard that the tax of the mountain city will be reduced by 30% for 300 years. What do you mean?" Zhao Honghuang didn't care about the data Han Fei reported. Of course, he knew that there were more energy crystals than that, but which lord wasn't greedy? This was normal. If the lords were greedy, they could better serve the city of scavengers. Besides, even if they were greedy, they didn't dare to be greedy. There were so many energy crystals that a lord couldn't use up at all. However, taxes couldn't be reduced easily. Since they were reduced, there must be a reason. Han Fei said loudly, "Lord Honghuang, there are 2 reasons for this tax reduction. First, the villages under the jurisdiction of the mountain city have submitted too many raw ores this year. If this continues, it will be detrimental to the overall strength of the mountain city in the future. We must give them a buffer time to train some talents. Seeing that Zhao Honghuang didn't respond and seemed to be waiting for Han Fei to continue, Han Fei realized that this should be the norm for other lords. So, Han Fei continued, "Secondly, I liberalized the tax in order to cultivate some seedlings. There are talented people in the mountain city." Zhao Honghuang was a little interested in this and couldn't help but ask, "How's his potential?" Han Fei said, "Judging from his potential, he has the potential to open the sky. However, his potential can't be fully released yet. He still needs more experience." Zhao Honghuang asked, "A conservative estimate?" Shui Fei nodded slightly. "A conservative estimate, at least to open the sky." Zhao Honghuang's lips curled up slightly. "Interesting. It seems like you have a very high opinion of this seedling." Then Zhao Honghuang added, "But what does this have to do with tax reduction?" Han Fei said, "This person is originally a human, so he's a little willing to serve the human race. However, he mistakenly ate foreign blood, so he shouldn't be considered a human anymore. I promised him to reduce taxes for the human race for 300 years. After that, he will submit to the 10,000 Scales clan." Zhao Honghuang nodded slightly. "But there's a reason for this, so it's approved. What's his current strength?" Han Fei nodded. "His tribulation is imminent." Zhao Honghuang nodded. "Well, do as you see fit. Just bring him here when the time comes. In addition, lords can help each other when there's no conflict. Don't be too rigid." Han Fei nodded. "Yes, Lord Honghuang." "Okay." Zhao Honghuang grunted softly and looked at Han Fei, who was following him with his head lowered. He said, "You raise your head." Han Fei pretended to be nervous and deliberately made his palms and back sweat. His face was a little red. He slowly raised his head and quickly cupped his hands. "I'm Yen Dong. Nice to meet you, Lord Law Enforcer." Zhao Honghuang looked him up and down. He does have a chance to open the sky, but he's just an average talent." Then Zhao Honghuang lost interest and looked at Shui Fei. "If that talent is really as good as you said, he will be rewarded in the future. Since you only brought 802 people here, it seems that they are all elites of the city. Then stay in the law enforcement camp. It's up to them." Shui Fei immediately cupped his hands. "Thank you, Lord Honghuang." Zhao Honghuang was right. He had only sent 802 people this time because of the reduction in taxes. It gave people the feeling that he was here to present a talent. But in fact, all of this was to leave a good impression on Zhao Honghuang. After all, if he dared to promise a talent tax reduction for 300 years, this talent must be not bad. Zhao Honghuang didn't doubt this. Zhao Honghuang would certainly pay attention to this talent. After all, this was a talent that Shui Fei wanted to cultivate even at the cost of tax reduction. If Han Fei's real body could come here in the future, with this talent as his backer, he wouldn't be able to do anything he wanted in the city of scavengers. At least, no one would dare to do anything to him because he was a human. Chapter 2145. Because there was still half a month before the agreed time with Long Yunfeng and the others, Han Fei did not leave immediately after reporting his work. According to Shui Fei's habit in previous years, when he came to the scavenger city, he would most likely investigate some relevant information about the Wanderer City in order to see if there was a chance to hunt. Of course, if Shui Fei could investigate, others could naturally find out about this. However, there was no independent intelligence agency in the scavenger city, so Shui Fei naturally had other acquaintances. This person Shui Fei knew was named Mo Qi, a famous eccentric in the scavenger city. She was very well informed, but he didn't know where she got her news. Because she often gave some unexpected news, she had a wide network of contacts in the scavenger city. Buying intelligence from her depended on the person. Scavenger City was very big, and the place where this person was staying was a very remote underground mansion. When Han Fei came, he happened to meet a lord who was also in the heaven opening state, and his level was very high, and he controlled the number 18 farm. This person was named Li Dezai. Although his name was very vulgar, he was very rich and very strong. It was said that he once fought 3 heaven-opening state cultivators alone and never lost. At this moment, the two of them bumped into each other. Oh, I was wondering who it was. Xue Fei, your tax has been reduced to 30%. Do you still have money to buy intelligence? Li Dezai was careless and didn't have the domineering attitude of a strong master, but his words were more or less like a joke. Han Fei controlled Xue Fei to lower his posture a little. Brother Li, it's because I have no money that I come to try my luck. Li Dezai chuckled. From the moment you reduced your tax, I knew you were up to something. Brother, don't say I didn't remind you, it's not easy to be the lord of the farms after number 80. If you encounter any problems that you can't solve, you can come to me for help. I've always been amiable, so I can only get half of the benefits at most. I know Brother Li's rules. If something big happens in the future, the first person I think of will be Brother Li. Li Dezai grinned and laughed a few times. Then he patted Xue Fei and said, I'll go first. Mo Chi's fee isn't low. I hope you can try your luck. There was competition between lords, but it was only between lords who were close to each other. Lords like Xue Fei and Li Dezai, who were worlds apart, basically had no dealings with each other. To put it bluntly, if Li Dezai really wanted to make a move, even 2 Xue Feis might not be able to stop him. The reason why Li Dezai chatted with Han Fei was that he knew about the tax reduction in Mountain City and guessed that something must have happened. However, he didn't know what it was exactly, so he took the initiative to chat with Xue Fei. If there were benefits, he wouldn't mind joining in. It didn't matter if there were no benefits. In any case, he didn't really care about Xue Fei's wealth. The reason why Han Fei came to Mo Chi was very simple. He was not familiar with the layout of the chaotic wasteland yet. It would be best if he could get some information, but if not, it would be fine. Of course, it would be best if he could get news about the family here. Before entering the barrier of the mansion, Han Fei was about to call the door when the barrier opened automatically. A clear and melodious voice rang out, Come in. By the way, bring your entourage along with you. When Han Fei heard this, his heart skipped a beat. Has he been seen through? Now he would be suspicious whenever there was the slightest movement. He was being cautious. But even if his real body went in, it shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, this was just his white mist body. So the two entered the barrier and stepped down the spiral stairs. At a glance, Han Fei found that there was something strange everywhere. The walls and the ground here were engraved with strange Taoist patterns. Han Fei's first feeling was that there was a large array here. Then he saw a lot of strange things, as if he had come to a grocery store. There were all kinds of gadgets that seemed to have no value here. They were oddly shaped and he didn't know what they were for. When Han Fei came all the way to the ground, he saw a palm-sized crystal ball shining with holy light floating in the air in the hall full of junk. In front of the crystal ball, there was a little girl in her teens with long braids. Cultivators couldn't just be judged by their appearance. This little girl was a real heaven-opening state powerhouse, and an extremely special one. Han Fei controlled Xue Fei to come to the opposite side of Mo Chi solemnly. Just as he was about to control Xue Fei to speak, Mo Chi suddenly said, Don't talk. With that, this little girl stood up, circled around Han Fei and Xue Fei, and looked them up and down for a long time. After this circle, Mo Chi sat in front of the crystal ball and said lazily, Xue Fei, are you injured? Han Fei's heart did a flip. What does she mean? Xue Fei said, What do you want to say? Mo Chi said, I feel that your soul seems to be very depressed. Do you need me to divine for you? Han Fei thought to himself, Can this thing be divined? Also, Mo Chi is actually a prophet, and it is said that she cultivates the great prophecy technique. But even if it's a prophecy, isn't it too fucking accurate? Xue Fei shook his head. No, my soul is not seriously injured. I just fought fiercely with the heaven-opening state ominous creatures in the tidal waves and was slightly impacted by a special ominous creature. Oh? What ominous creature? After Mo Chi asked this, it didn't even take a second before she said, Forget it, then it's an ominous creature. You are poor today, so I didn't want you to come in today. The attendant beside you. After saying that, Emochi looked at Han Fei. Her eyes were straight and flickering, and to be honest, Han Fei felt a little guilty. Emochi said, I feel that there is something wrong with your birth destiny. I can't even make a prophecy for you. Your birth destiny seems to be as deep as the starry sky. Besides, your luck seems to be very good. It stands to reason that with your luck, you shouldn't be just at the peak of the sea-opening realm now. Han Fei's heart thumped. This Emochi was definitely not weak. As soon as he came in, he found that there was something wrong with both Xue Fei and himself, and this woman could even see his luck, but his luck had clearly been adjusted. What else could she see? Xue Fei said, Yen Dong is my right-hand man. As long as he continues to cultivate with me, he may have a chance to open the sky one day. As if she didn't hear Xue Fei, Emochi still stared at Han Fei. Why don't you leave this attendant to me? I also need an assistant. If you leave him to me, I'll give you 3 pieces of big intelligence for free today. How about that? Han Fei was shocked. Damn it, I've already disguised myself as a member of the 10,000 Scales clan, but I'm still in high demand? 3 pieces of big intelligence, which are worth a lot of money. Emochi's position in the scavenger city was very strange. She seemed to be marginalized, but she could deal with the crowd of people who wanted to open the sky, and everyone was willing to pay for intelligence. This alone was not something that ordinary people could do. If Emochi was just a tool enslaved by the 10,000 Scales clan, how could she treat the lord of the 10,000 Scales clan with such an attitude? Xue Fei's face twitched and his eyelids twitched. What if I don't? Emochi chuckled. Okay, then I'll have to show you your past. As she spoke, the holy crystal ball in front of Emochi began to spin slightly, and a blue halo emerged. When Han Fei saw the blue halo, his heart skipped a beat. This is clearly a time spell. This woman is actually walking on the path of time? Ha! Don't be guilty. My path is not only the great path of time. I've mastered the great prophecy technique. Wait a moment. I'll see your past and then I'll make a prophecy for you. When the Tao of Time was about to blossom, Han Fei finally made a move. The Tao of Time burst out from Han Fei, and time flowed smoothly, offsetting Emochi's Tao of Time. Stop pretending? Han Fei didn't know what to do. This woman seemed to have seen through him, but she was just teasing him. Han Fei didn't run. He said coldly, Who are you? How did you see through me? Before Han Fei came, he had already deduced the sky concealment divine technique, which was supplemented by the shape-shifting technique. Even Zhao Honghuang couldn't see through him. How could this intelligence seller see through him? Emochi chuckled. Actually, I only saw through one thing. I didn't see anything else. Yen Dong, what's going on? At this moment, Xue Fei looked at Han Fei warily, as if he had just found out about it too. Emochi said helplessly, Stop pretending. You've already been exposed. Xue Fei indeed couldn't see through you. But there's a big problem with you. It's almost impossible for you to be a nobody even though you've practiced the Tao of Time to this extent. Besides, I can't see through your luck and destiny, so I can't predict your future at all. Pioneer Sea Realm? I don't believe you. Han Fei's face turned extremely dark. Just because of the Tao of Time? Emochi said, Isn't that enough? You should know that the great Taos attract each other, right? There are too few people who practice the Tao of Time, but you are here. I feel that the Tao of Time has been touched. If you don't have a problem, who does? Besides, how can you be a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator if you can compete with my Tao of Time? At this time, Emochi glanced at Xue Fei again. Is he under your control? After discovering that there's something wrong with you, I tried to predict Xue Fei's fate and found that his destiny was doomed. So, 90% of the time, he is under your control. I'm really curious. For you. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Since you've seen through me, what do you want now? To stall for time and take me down? Emochi shrugged. Why should I take you down? The 10,000 Scales clan can't find you because they're stupid. They deserve it. I'm not from the 10,000 Scales clan. I'm just being held hostage by the Emperor of 10,000 Scales. Otherwise, I would have run away a long time ago. being held hostage? Han Fei thought to himself, I really don't see how you're being held hostage. Chapter 2146. Facing a creepy expert that he didn't know at all, Han Fei was ready to give up the mountain city. Even though the mountain city was completely under his control, even though he had made arrangements there. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to be planning something, Emochi chuckled. Believe it or not, I think we can cooperate. Cooperate? Han Fei looked at Emochi in confusion. What kind of cooperation could he have with her? If what she said was true, that he was held hostage by Dizun, and that was why he stayed in Mountain City, then how could he, a mere sky splitter, cooperate with her? Han Fei asked, cooperate with what? Emochi said, no one in the 10,000 Scales clan walks on the Great Tao of Time. Otherwise, I would have known. So, you can't be from the 10,000 Scales clan. Since you're not from the 10,000 Scales clan, you must have a purpose to control Xue Fei and enter the city at the risk of being discovered. If you're not an enemy of the 10,000 Scales clan, you must have a big plan. I guess you're either from the Primordial City or the City of Wanderers. I don't know what your purpose is, but if you help me get out of the 10,000 Scales clan's control, I can help you achieve your goal. As Emochi said, if she was really held hostage, they could indeed cooperate. However, in Han Fei's Origin Sea, two choices appeared, one true and one false. At this moment, the navigator began to operate. One had to know that the navigational panorama did not only have the effect of pointing the way. It had many uses if it was used properly. For example, now, it could also tell whether it was true or false. Han Fei asked if what Emochi said was true or false. In the end, the nautical panorama quickly landed on the true option. You're really held hostage in the City of Scavengers? At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but say, since you walk on the Great Tao of Time, you should have enough opportunities to leave through the River of Time, right? Why do you need me to help you escape? Emochi snorted. What do you think the Supreme Emperors do? Walking on the Great Tao of Time doesn't mean you can escape from the Supreme Emperors. Even a sky creator can break through the River of Time. Do you think the Supreme Emperors are easy to deal with? I've used this method many times in my early years. Han Fei carefully recalled that the earliest time Xue Fei came to Emochi to buy information was more than 12,000 years ago. In other words, this woman had been trapped here for at least 2,000 years. It's not like there aren't any experts who aren't from the 10,000 Scale tribe in the Scavenger City. With your methods, it shouldn't be a problem to bewitch a few of them. You might even be able to bewitch the experts of the 10,000 Scales tribe. Why would you trust a stranger like me? Emochi replied, because you can fool Zhao Honghuang. There are many experts in Scavenger City, but to be able to deceive Zhao Honghuang openly without being discovered, you have already surpassed countless others. What I want is not as simple as deceiving Zhao Honghuang. What I want is to deceive the 10,000 Scales Emperor and bring me away under his watch. Han Fei was surprised. Emperor 10,000 Scales is in the city? Han Fei's heart tightened. In all these years, Xue Fei had only seen the 10,000 Scales Emperor from afar once. Generally speaking, how could a venerable emperor master stay in one place all the time? Didn't venerable sovereigns need to cultivate? Didn't they also pursue the path to godhood? Didn't they need to explore the sea of stars? Emochi replied, it doesn't matter whether the 10,000 Scales Emperor is in the city or not. Do you think I can run away with so many people? Besides, Zhao Honghuang's strength has almost reached the point where he can prove his Tao at any time. If I really hide in time, I can find more than one person here. Han Fei replied, you said it yourself. So many people can detect your existence. How can I help you? Emochi replied, intuition. Although I can't use the great prophecy technique on you, you can control Xue Fei silently. However, you were able to control Xue Fei without anyone noticing. This means that you're not weak at all. No matter how weak Xue Fei is, he is still a Lord-level expert. Besides, Xue Fei walks on the Nightmare Tao. Although this path couldn't be said to be strong, it wasn't something that could be taken down easily. Besides, you have to completely control him while ensuring that his soul is intact. which is not something that ordinary people can do. So, I guess your strength has probably reached the level of the 10 great lords. Even if you are not far from it. After saying that, Emochi looked at Han Fei proudly, as if saying that he had already defeated Han Fei. Han Fei was also puzzled. He just wanted to buy intelligence. How did he meet such a person? Han Fei said, I can help you, but I am not strong enough now. But I'm not strong enough right now, so I can't help you in the short term. Emochi said, although I don't know what you are up to, you can deceive others. You might be able to fool others, but since you've already been exposed, there's definitely a problem. I'm not in a hurry. Let's watch your performance. Han Fei took a slight breath and suddenly grinned. It seems that you are determined to defeat me? Emochi looked at Han Fei and seemed to be nodding as if saying, I am determined to defeat you. Han Fei smiled and said, okay, since you want to cooperate, let's cooperate. As long as I don't leave the Scavenger Sea area for the time being, I may indeed have a chance to take it away in the future. However, since it is a cooperation, I don't need to buy intelligence. How about answering some of my questions? Emochi sat down immediately. Tell me, what do you want to know? What kind of intelligence? He sat opposite Emochi. First question, do you know the Yin family? Emochi said without blinking, they are the most powerful family in the primordial city and the only top force in the chaotic wasteland that controls a city with their family name. The Yin family has 2 emperors, and there are as many as 16 heaven-opening state powerhouses in the family alone. Han Fei thought to himself, sure enough. When Cho-Chun said that the strong masters of the primordial city were hunting tax collectors crazily in the number 101 breeding farm and looking for the starting land, he had already guessed it. Now that his guess was confirmed, Han Fei's heart sank. It seemed that except for the support of the Wanderer, the chaotic wasteland was full of enemies. Han Fei asked, do you have a sea map of the entire chaotic wasteland? Emochi exclaimed, huh. It seems that you are new to the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei scoffed. Don't talk nonsense. Just tell me if you have it or not. Emochi said, yes, but in the eyes of the strong, this thing is not very valuable. You have everything you need. Is the Yin family your enemy? Han Fei asked, why do you think so? Emochi explained, since you are new to the chaotic wasteland, it means that you have nothing to do with the Yin family before. Now you want to ask the Yin family, if there is no grudge between you and them, why are you looking for them? They are the most primitive force in the chaotic wasteland and have never had much interaction with the outside world. Why are you looking for them? Han Fei said, how you guess is your business. I also want to know some relevant information about the Wanderer City. It doesn't have to be very detailed or vague. I just want to know some messy information about the Wanderer City. Emochi asked, do you want to unite with the Wanderer City to attack the Primordial City and the Scavenger City? Han Fei didn't say anything, but Emochi smiled faintly. I'm afraid it won't be easy. The overall strength of the Wanderer City is the weakest of the 3 main cities. Besides, the Wanderer City was newly built in the last 100,000 years. Whether in terms of foundation or overall strength, it is far inferior to the Primordial City and the Scavenger City. The only commendable thing is that most of the strong people in the Wanderer City are vicious people who are very cruel to their enemies. This is the real reason why they can stand tall in the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei frowned. Newly built in the last 100,000 years? He had a suspicion that the sovereign venerable realm expert in Wanderer City was most likely the human king from back then. This was mainly guessed from the confrontation between the Wanderer City and the Scavenger City because of the human clan. But whether it was the human king or not, Han Fei didn't know. However, after hearing what Emochi said, Han Fei felt that his guess was probably correct. Back then, Xia Hongzhu and the human king should have been the first batch to leave the chaotic sea. Xia Hongzhu's strength, as a divine son, was estimated to be at least at the level of the 10 great lords. And the human king could fight with Xia Hongzhu without being at a disadvantage. After 100,000 years of development, he might be able to prove his Tao. After all, it was much easier to prove his Tao in the sea realm than in the chaotic sea. This could be seen just by looking at the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei said, "I want some basic information." Mo Chi threw a jade slip to him. "This is the second question. You can ask another one. You can't expect me to answer so many of your questions for free when you haven't even done anything. You should know that my fees are very expensive." Han Fei said, "The last question. I want information about all the lords of the scavenger city, including the information about the heaven-opening state strong people in the city, including their Tao, strength, and many other aspects. I believe you can satisfy me. If something happens to the 10,000 scale clan, you will have a higher chance of leaving." But Chapter 2147. From Mo Chi, Han Fei obtained information about the Vagrant City. The city lord of the Vagrant City was known as the Silent Lord. He was the only emperor of the Vagrant City. At the beginning of the establishment of the Vagrant City, it was said that the two emperors of the primitive city tried to maintain the ruling position of the primitive city in the chaotic wasteland. But at that time, Wanderer City had sent out 4 great generals to attack the sovereigns under the rule of Primordial City. They had slaughtered 7 great sky-opening experts and retreated safely, forcing Primordial City's sovereign Venerable to return to the city. That battle had made the Wanderer City's 4 great generals famous. It was said that these 4 people all had the potential to prove the Tao. After all, they were emperors. In a real battle, the 2 emperors failed to defeat the Silent Lord, which was enough to prove the strength of the Silent Lord. Later, the primitive city acknowledged the existence of the Vagrant City. After all, they were also afraid of the Silent Lord's revenge. However, what the primitive city never expected was that the Vagrant City was so attractive to individual cultivators. The Silent Lord claimed that the Vagrant City was a paradise for all the individual cultivators in the world. In the Vagrant City, no one would investigate one's origin. There was no oppression, no rule, and resources were shared. He wanted to establish a country of individual cultivators. In the vast sea realm, there were too many individual cultivators. Many of them had no resources, no cultivation techniques, and were bullied. These were not problems in the Vagrant City. Here, you could exchange for any resources you wanted. The area within a radius of tens of thousands of miles was a safe zone. The only thing the Vagrant City did not allow was someone to destroy the foundation of the Vagrant City. Up to this day, many spies had been uncovered, and not a single one of them had survived. Even the heaven-opening state of the primitive city had sneaked into the Vagrant City. It seemed that some secret had been leaked. At that time, the entire Vagrant City launched a beheading operation against the primitive city. The Silent Lord personally intercepted the 2 kings of the primitive city, and the 4 generals attacked several cities. Nearly 100 heaven-opening state and blood-burning realm experts attacked the 8 cities under the jurisdiction of the primitive city. In that battle, the Vagrant City lost 13 heaven-opening state experts and 800 sea-opening state experts. The Silent Lord was suspected to have been seriously injured. All of this was for the sake of killing that traitor who was protected by Origin City. This battle had truly established Wanderer City's position in the primal chaos wasteland. That was because they were crazy enough. They would rather kill 1,000 enemies and suffer 800 casualties to defend Wanderer City. This sort of madness forced Origin City to make concessions. Later, according to the information that Mo Chi had given him, for some reason, the Master of Silence had once fought with the 10,000 Scales Great Emperor. However, the exact outcome of the fight was unknown. When the Primordial City learned of this, they attempted to join forces with the Emperor of 10,000 Scales to suppress the Wanderers. But in the end, Wanderer City still went crazy, and it fought 1,000 battles in the past 10,000 years. As for the Silent Master, it seemed as if he didn't need to cultivate at all. He didn't follow the rules of Primordial City and Scavenger City and frequently attacked. A dignified venerable sovereign repeatedly participated in the battles of cities. This gave the great venerable sovereigns of the chaotic wasteland quite a headache. They felt that the Silent Master was simply a lunatic who didn't care about martial ethics. It was said that the last battle was less than 1,000 years ago. This was already the longest peace that had been maintained so far. When Han Fei learned some basic information about Wanderer City, he couldn't help but admire this silent master. He was indeed a ruthless person. And the facts also proved that the venerable sovereigns of the chaotic wasteland were also bullies. As long as you were ruthless and decisive enough, they couldn't do anything to you. Of course, the premise was that your strength could keep up. Otherwise, everything would be empty talk. In fact, the information that Han Fei needed was some basic information, because he didn't intend to do anything during this period. After all, his strength hadn't returned to its peak yet. Even if he wanted to take action, this wasn't the time. In the end, Han Fei asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll run away? No one will save you then." Emochi giggled. "Are you kidding me? You spent so much effort just for this bit of information? You don't want your mountain city anymore? Trust me, you'll always come to me for something." The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. "I hope so." Han Fei didn't stay here for too long. After getting some basic information and the list of lords of Scavenger City, he quickly left. After Han Fei left, Emochi's eyes narrowed slightly and a faint smile appeared on her face. The great way of time that hasn't been discovered until now? Should I lead him into the Temple of Time? What a dilemma. I'd better observe for a while. After leaving Emochi, Han Fei felt a chill on his back. Sure enough, the outside world was very dangerous. He hadn't seen any venerable sovereigns yet, but he had already been seen through. It seemed that he had to cover up the great way of time. Otherwise, he might be seen through. The great ways attract each other? Han Fei couldn't help but shake his head. He really didn't have a particularly good way to deal with this kind of thing. Although he had long known that the great ways would attract each other. Even a long time ago, when the old turtle told him about it, he had speculated whether the great ways attracted each other, which was a means for the strong to harvest the weak. Now it seemed that it might not be as bad as he thought. Or perhaps he hadn't met a stronger person who walked the same path as him. After leaving Emochi's place, Han Fei didn't stay in Scavenger City for long, because there was basically nothing he could buy here. After reaching the heaven-opening realm, it was extremely rare to be able to directly buy things that were beneficial to him. After all, the chaotic wasteland was just a chaotic wasteland, not a prosperous place like the divine capital dynasty. In the chaotic wasteland, there were very few auctions or trade fairs for heaven-opening realm powerhouses. It was as short as 1,000 years, and as long as a few thousand years. This year, the major lords just came to report on their work. It could be seen that there were no such events. 10 days later, Mountain City. Before going to the number 86 farm, Han Fei returned to Mountain City in advance. Hong Yu. Your Majesty, I'm here. Hong Yu was very worried about Han Fei going to Scavenger City. If something happened to Han Fei, he would basically be in trouble. Your Majesty, did your trip go well? Han Fei nodded slightly. Not bad. From today on, you have to pretend to be a human king who came to seek refuge. Hong Yu's heart did a flip. Is he guarding against something? But since he was in the same boat as Han Fei, he didn't ask any more questions. He would do whatever Han Fei told him to do. The next day after returning, Han Fei left again and went to the number 86 farm. Zhang Li was in charge of the number 86 farm, which had a total of 126 domains, and Li Qing was in charge of it. This time, he couldn't go with Xue Fei as Yendong. Usually, only heaven-opening realm powerhouses could participate in this kind of hunting event. If Yendong appeared, there would be a problem. However, Han Fei could not go. If there was really an entrance to the chaotic sea in the number 101 farm, whether it was Zhang Li and the others or those from the Yin family, he had to find a way to kill them. Therefore, Han Fei directly turned into a bracelet and hung it on Xue Fei's hand. When necessary, it was convenient for him to sneak attack others. One day later, Li City. As soon as Han Fei arrived, he scanned with his perception and found that Zhang Wei, Long Yunfeng, Zhang Li, and Chou Chen were all there. Plus himself, there were 5 heaven-opening realm powerhouses. Han Fei landed and couldn't help but say in surprise, "Huh, you guys are so early. Am I the slowest one again?" Zhang Li said with a smile, It's not bad that you could arrive 3 days in advance. I bet with them that you would definitely come on time. Zhang Wei also said with a smile, how could old Shui miss such a good opportunity? Long Yunfeng nodded. Since old Shui is here, Brother Cho, it's time to go. Number 101 Farm. Cho Chen and the other 4 quickly passed through the ice gaps. In the end, the 5 of them stopped in an ice nest only about 2,000 kilometers from the sea. This place had been enveloped by gray mist. Han Fei read Shui Fei's memory and learned that this mist was called the primordial mist. Finding the primordial mist meant finding the primordial cemetery. This place was already in the category of the primordial cemetery. Of course, they were more willing to believe that this was the starting land. Cho Chen said, let's stop here. The information I left them was not comprehensive. They can't find this place without a few months. In the primordial mist, even if they die, the weather will be very small. At most, their life tablets will shatter, and the weather will not attract the attention of the city of scavengers. Further ahead, it may be the passage to the starting land. If we fight there, it will be bad if the other party sneaks in. Zhang Wei suddenly took out a big umbrella. As soon as the umbrella was opened, Han Fei and the other 4 were all covered in it. How could he not have some capital to hunt the strong? This was Zhang Wei's strongest secret treasure, the primordial chaos umbrella. As long as they were protected by this umbrella, even the sky would not be able to detect them. Han Fei could feel something unusual from the space formed by the primordial chaos umbrella. It seemed that the space here was completely hidden by this umbrella as if it didn't exist. After Zhang Wei took out the primordial chaos umbrella, everyone couldn't help but look at Shui Fei. Why did he take Shui Fei? Of course, it was because of his Dao. Now that they had hidden their tracks, it was Han Fei's turn to take action. Shui Fei sat cross-legged on the ground and said, I will set up 9-layered dream realms on this road. But when you reach the heaven-opening state, if you connect with the heavenly Dao, you will soon find something wrong. I don't know how long the 9-layered dream realms can last, but I will find their life items as soon as possible. At that time, I will need the help of Brother Li's Dao of Confusion to confuse their minds and cooperate with me. Zhang Li nodded. Don't worry. Even if the other party has as many as 5 people in the heaven-opening state, let's surround them first and kill 2 of them first. Long Yunfeng said, since the tidal wave came, I have been preparing a spear attack. Even if their strength is more than 20% higher than mine, this spear can still blow them up. At that time, old Shui, you'd better kill one of them first. After that, Long Yunfeng looked at Cho Chen. Brother Cho, you should focus on strength. It's best if you can penetrate one of them first like me. In this way, we will have a chance to kill 2 of them first. Cho Chen nodded solemnly. I will try my best. If Cho Chen hadn't been the initiator, Zhang Wei and the others wouldn't have taken him with them. After all, his Dao was nothing special. Cho Chen looked solemn at the moment, and no one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, Zhang Li asked, what if the other party has more than 5 people in the heaven-opening state? Zhang Wei said directly, more than 7, no fight. Chapter 2148. On the 7th day after Zhang Wei and the others set up the ambush, Shui Fei felt that his Dao was touched. It wasn't that he had been discovered, but that someone had walked into his dream. At that moment, Han Fei's heart shook. What a coincidence, there are exactly 7 of them. Yes, 7 people broke into the dream he weaved at once. And the first dream he weaved was an environment that was exactly the same as his surroundings. This was the simplest and least detectable method of weaving dreams. These 7 people didn't find anything wrong when they first entered here. These people were 5 men and 2 women, and they were all very handsome. They were very cautious and would stop for a while every tens of thousands of kilometers. Suddenly, Han Fei saw that one of the men had a pair of wings on his back, which were as thin as cicadas' wings and glowing with colorful light. Han Fei would never forget them in his life. Heavenly cicada wings? Han Fei's heart sank. As he expected, the primitive city was where the Yin family was located. Only the Yin family would have the bloodline of the heavenly cicada. Cicada! The sound of the heavenly cicada vibrated at the bottom of the sea. The sound, like a scanner, echoed in countless cracks in the ice. The man seemed to be judging the route by the echo. Unfortunately, the first layer of the dream Xue Fei weaved was a complete simulation of the surrounding environment, which was half asleep and half awake. At the moment the sound sounded, Xue Fei said, "Here they are, 7 of them." Zhang Wei and the other 4 were shocked. However, Zhang Wei and Long Yunfeng couldn't help frowning slightly. 7 people, even if 2 were killed at the first moment, there were still 5 behind. It didn't seem easy to deal with them. However, Zhang Wei and Long Yunfeng looked at each other and decided to fight. Because this was not only a matter of fighting, but also a battle for the starting land. As long as they killed the other 2, there might be a chance to fight. Even if they couldn't wipe out this group of people, it shouldn't be a problem to beat them back. More importantly, since they had come out to hunt, they had to prepare their trump cards. So Zhang Wei nodded slightly, indicating that the plan remained the same. And the people in the primitive city, every time they passed through a crack in the ice, they would stop for a while. One of them suddenly took out a black pearl. The pearl was flickering with a faint light. There's a response. It's really nearby. This situation caused everyone's spirits to rise. In the end, they had still found this place. No matter how much they had gone overboard in the number 101 farm, this time, it was Di Zun's arrangement. Since Di Zun had asked them to come, they were not afraid that their trip would be exposed. The few of them could not help but quicken their pace, rushing into the depths. Xue Fei had quietly set up many dreams in a row. However, at the beginning of their journey, these dreamlands did not erupt. Thus, after traveling for another 100,000 kilometers, they still did not discover it. Xue Fei reminded them that they were only 100,000 miles away. They could see that Long Yunfeng had already grabbed their spears, ready to strike. Han Fei was also surprised. Xue Fei's Dao was actually quite useful. When combined with hunting, the effect was indeed extraordinary. After a while, in Primordial City, the 7 monarchs weaved through the cracks in the countless icebergs, watching as the black pearl in their hands grew brighter and brighter. The leader shouted, "Look, it's the primordial mist." At that moment, everyone's spirits were lifted, and the joy on their faces was beyond words. Whoosh, 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 they rushed into the primordial mist without hesitation and even showed signs of speeding up. All of a sudden, they felt a terrifying pressure descending upon them. They only saw a figure standing in front of them without them noticing. The leader immediately exclaimed, "Oh no, it's Zhao Honghuang." At that moment, they were all horrified. How could they not know who Zhao Honghuang was? As one of the 2 divine generals of the city of scavengers, Zhang Beihai stayed in the boundless mining area all year round, and the city of scavengers had always been under Zhao Honghuang's command. They had never thought that Zhao Honghuang would be here. Shouldn't Zhao Honghuang be in the city of scavengers at this time? Immediately, one of them was shocked. Is this his real body? Hiss, these people were also horrified. They all knew that Zhao Honglong had only left an incarnation in the city of scavengers, and no one knew where his real body was. Now, they felt that they seemed to have encountered Zhao Honghuang's mysterious real body. How could they not be shocked? However, the leader of the group suddenly felt that something was wrong. When he thought of something, he suddenly shouted, "Oh no, this is all fake. This pressure isn't real enough. Although it has Taoist rhyme, it can't shake my Tao. This Zhao Honghuang is fake. We've been ambushed." Just when this person noticed this, Zhao Honghuang suddenly moved. He covered the sky with one hand and slapped at them. This was the first layer of the dream created by Xue Fei. Even though they knew that this Zhao Honghuang was fake, they could not help but block it when they saw Zhao Honghuang attack. At that moment, the 9 dream realms overlapped one another. Even if this layer of the dream was broken, they would only fall into the 8th layer. The 8th layer of the dream was the moment when they first arrived and the heavenly cicada flapped its wings. These 2 layers of the dream were the only ones that could confuse this group of people. From the 3rd layer of the dream onward, they would definitely connect with the heavenly Tao. Once they felt that something was wrong, they would immediately break the dream. In the outside world, Xue Fei suddenly shouted, "Attack!" In the blink of an eye, Long Yunfeng jumped up and attacked with his spear. In an instant, a woman among the 7 people was stabbed and exploded. Han Fei was speechless. Han Fei was speechless. This guy was really ruthless. There were so many men, but he only targeted women. Zhang Wei and Chou Chen attacked at the same time. One palm and one knife, they slapped at the same person. It wasn't realistic to get rid of 3 sky splitters at once. Their goal was to get rid of 2 first. It was not a big deal to kill a sky creator, but it was difficult to penetrate their bodies. One of Zhang Wei's subordinates was also pierced through. After that, Zhang Wei shouted, "Brother Li, give old Xue a hand." Clang, 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 a bell appeared in Zhang Li's hand. The bell vibrated, and the 7 sky creators all bled from their 7 orifices. And out of instinct, after Long Yunfeng and Zhang Wei attacked, the rest of the people from the primitive city, even though their souls were still entangled by the nightmares, instinctively put them in a defensive state. Zhang Wei and the others were only responsible for killing these people, but the task of killing the enemy fell on Xue Fei. At this moment, the nightmare Zhao Honghuang had been shattered, and Xue Fei's soul took the opportunity to materialize the navigator in their dreams and drill into their sea of origin. Han Fei just tried it, but he didn't expect it to work. Xue Fei's great path could enter other people's sea of origin through interfering with their dreams. However, Han Fei felt that this was too slow. As the saying goes, cut the Gordian knot with a knife. In the dream world, Xue Fei was actually the master. What was the big deal about materializing a navigator? As long as the things he weaved didn't exceed the limits of Xue Fei's ability, he could weave them. And because Han Fei's soul was integrated with it, in a sense, the secret of the navigator didn't repel Xue Fei, so he could weave it successfully. In the blink of an eye, in this unconscious state, if there were origin objects in the Sea of Origin, they would definitely be activated at this moment. Unfortunately, the first Sea of Origin that Xue Fei entered didn't carry the Great Path in the way of origin objects. The other party had integrated the Great Path into the Sea of Origin. However, it wasn't difficult to destroy them in this way. Xue Fei controlled nearly 10 million energy crystals and scattered them in the 210,000 kilometer Sea of Origin. What kind of concept was 10 million energy crystals? If converted into chaotic energy, it would be an astronomical number. Xue Fei's 40 million energy crystals had been converted for decades, and there were still a lot of ownerless souls that hadn't been used yet. Now Han Fei could casually produce 10 million energy crystals. Who could resist him? Boom, 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 Xue Fei quickly retreated from this person's Sea of Origin. Not to brag, with so many energy crystals detonated, if his great path was not broken, Han Fei might as well commit suicide. Sure enough, the heavenly path cracked, the weather suddenly changed, and blood filled the air. Zhang Wei and the others were overjoyed when they saw this. They didn't expect that this time Xue Fei would kill one person so easily. This efficiency was extremely high. In the same way, Han Fei quickly entered the second person's soul. This person had just been blown up and his soul was suppressed by Zhang Li's demonic sound. At this moment, he was still in a daze and instinctively reborn out of the will of the emperor. However, before his consciousness returned, the Sea of Origin was detonated again. Rumble, huh? When the second emperor died, Zhang Wei and the others couldn't help but be surprised. When did Xue Fei become so brave? In a short period of time, he killed 2 emperors in a row. Did this guy hide his strength before? But he only knew that Xue Fei used to kill a heaven-opening state expert in this way. However, he didn't know that Xue Fei wanted to enter the opponent's Sea of Origin through the soul in the past, and it was much slower. At this moment, Xue Fei suddenly shouted in a low voice, "I'll leave one of them in the dream and leave the rest to you." Long Yunfeng nodded. "But Brother Xue will take the lead today." Chapter 2149. Han Fei didn't expect that Xue Fei would become so strong when he had the ability to instantiate the multiverse. 10 million energy crystals in exchange for a heaven-opening state expert was simply too tempting. This meant that as long as he experienced a tidal wave, he would be able to kill a dozen heaven-opening state experts with the harvest of the tidal wave. If Xue Fei had such means in the past, he wouldn't have been reduced to the lord of a mountain city. Of course, a large part of the reason why Xue Fei was so strong today was that someone outside had beaten the two of them, and Zhang Li had suppressed and destroyed their souls. Otherwise, if the other party was still conscious and could defend their souls, even if Xue Fei entered the other party's origin sea, he would only be suppressed. It was almost impossible for him to kill two emperors in such a short time. Xue Fei's 9-layered dream had been broken at this moment. 4 heaven-opening state experts of the primitive city escaped from the dream. How could they not be shocked to see that 2 of them had died? But when they took a closer look, they found that the other party seemed to only have 4 people. The person from the Yin family immediately shouted, "Cho Qin? I didn't expect you to be the one who schemed against us." Cho Qin snorted coldly. "How dare you slaughter all the tax collectors of my city? Do you really think I'm a pushover just because I'm ranked outside the top 100? At this moment, the heaven-opening experts of the primitive city snorted coldly when they saw that there were only 4 people on Cho Chen's side. "You're courting death. Cicada." This person had heavenly cicada wings and was as fast as lightning. He instantly charged out. Han Fei didn't care how they fought. He would let them fight in this kind of chaotic battle. It would be best if they all died. If they all died, he could reap the benefits. How many resources did they have with so many heaven-opening state experts? Besides, these 2 were his enemies. It would only benefit him if they all died. So, while watching the battle, Han Fei let Xue Fei fight the weakest person left in the dream. Yes, the weakest one. Only a fool would leave the strong to himself. If it was just a one-on-one battle, Xue Fei could almost use Infinite Dream. If he forcibly created a dream with the power of his soul and dragged people into the dream, this was a battle of souls. This was a battle of souls. Even if the other party was slightly stronger, it was practically impossible for them to win on their own home ground. The battle for splitting the heavens spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The surroundings crumbled, the shattered icebergs tumbling in the seawater. The void here was unusually chaotic. The person from the Yin clan who had awakened the heavenly cicada's bloodline was extremely fast. Furthermore, the cicada's sound was like a demonic sound. He could cancel out Zhang Li's bell sound while fighting Long Yunfeng. Divine art, sky cicada soul devouring. At that moment, Han Fei was surprised to find that the ringing of the bell in Zhang Li's hand, who was fighting with the powerhouse of the Yin clan, stopped abruptly. Blood gushed out of his mouth and flowed out of his 7 orifices. Han Fei could only see through the chaos origin umbrella that a cicada seemed to be biting something in the eyes of the man from the Yin family. When he looked at Zhang Li again, his aura was getting weaker and weaker. Boom! A crack appeared in the sky once again, before Zhang Li's head exploded. It seemed like he had been killed by the martial emperor of the Yin clan during the Battle of Divine Souls. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What kind of operation is this? Did the other party break into Zhang Li's origin sea? If the other party hadn't broken into Zhang Li's origin sea, how could he have killed Zhang Li so easily? Moreover, Zhang Li was clear-headed. He must have been resisting all the time. Even if the martial emperor of the Yin clan could enter Zhang Li's origin sea, Zhang Li, who also had a powerful divine soul, could not suppress him? Suddenly, Han Fei was horrified and a guess came to his mind. Did he have to destroy the opponent's origin sea or his natal item to kill the martial emperor? If not, what other means could he use to kill a martial emperor? In Xue Fei's dream, the 2 of them were fighting with divine souls, and neither of them could defeat the other. Originally, Han Fei was going to watch the show, but the martial emperor of the Yin clan suddenly looked at the place where the chaos origin umbrella was and shouted, "Who's peeping?" Han Fei was shocked. Was I discovered? He immediately realized that he must have been staring at the man's eyes. When he looked at him, the man would actually feel something. At this time, Han Fei's location was seen through. If he was attacked by the martial emperor of the Yin clan, the man in the dream would have a chance to come out. If she came out, the battle would become 5 against 4. This situation was not good. The strength of the opponent was not weak at all. If it really became 5 against 4, Han Fei's side would have to run away. However, how could Han Fei allow Zhang Wei and the others to run away? If they ran away, would he just watch these people break into the chaotic Azure Sea? Even if the chaotic Azure Sea was guarded by Beast Kings, the martial emperor of the Yin clan must have attacked the Beast Kings more than once. This time, he even sent a martial emperor to break in. How could he not have some backup plans? After sorting out his thoughts, Han Fei suddenly burst out and leaped, intending to kill the heaven-opening state cultivator who was still trapped in the dream. He wanted to kill this man and balance the strength of the two sides. But how could the martial emperor of the Yin clan allow it? His speed was only faster than Xue Fei's, and he stopped in front of him. Even Zhang Wei said to him via voice transmission, "Old Xue, find a way to retreat." However, Xue Fei roared, "Bastard, Zhang Li is my best friend. How can I sit back and watch him die today?" Xue Fei burned his essence blood, condensed his soul into a dream vortex, and made a fist seal, facing the martial emperor of the Yin clan who was blocking him. However, the other party sneered. "You overestimate yourself. Heavenly Cicada Soul Devourer." When the martial emperor of the Yin clan's eyes lit up again. Unfortunately, this time he instantly suffered a backlash. Because Xue Fei was controlled by Han Fei turned into a bracelet and put it on Xue Fei. No matter how strong the Yin clan's divine skill was, Han Fei's current soul power was more than 3 million, which was 50% more than Xue Fei's. Therefore, when his soul power rushed in, the other party didn't gain any benefits at all, and he vomited a mouthful of blood due to the backlash. Xue Fei took the opportunity to weave 3 dreams for this person. One dream was the scene of Xue Fei and Zhang Li's souls fighting. One dream was the scene of him fighting with Xue Fei just a second ago. And another dream was the scene of him defeating Xue Fei. Even though he knew that these 3 dreams wouldn't last long, Han Fei only needed 1 second to finish them. Xue Fei's figure flashed, and at this moment, a punch bombarded the martial emperor who was still trapped in the dream. However, the power of this blow was also borrowed from Han Fei's power, and the punch blasted this person into the sea. Once a dream encountered reality, it would immediately collapse. So after this person suffered a heavy blow, he immediately wanted to self-destruct. Even if he self-destructed, he wouldn't die, and he could be reborn quickly. However, on the wrist of Xue Fei, an invisible black line instantly attached to this person's body. The body of black fog forcibly held this person with the void lines. When everyone was blasted out of the sea, his will erupted wildly, trying to shatter the void lines. In fact, one of the void lines did collapse. However, this person was entangled by the body of black fog and could not control his body at all. And above the sea, the big hole that was broken open froze again in an instant. That person couldn't return quickly, which meant that he was doomed to die. Above the sea, it was extremely cold, which was not something that a heaven-opening state cultivator could withstand. This person became an ice sculpture in the blink of an eye. His body, after being frozen for only 3 seconds, was frozen into pieces. And Han Fei's body of black fog was also so cold that it almost collapsed. Fortunately, Xue Fei's fake fist mark below was so fierce that it shattered the void, causing a black light to flash in front of him, and the body of black fog took the opportunity to instantly merge into one. No one noticed anything wrong. Spear Dragon Break. At the moment when Xue Fei blasted the martial emperor out of the sea, Long Yunfeng's eyes lit up, and he backhanded his spear like a dragon, attacking the powerhouse of the Yin family who was instantly trapped in the dream. Unfortunately, the latter's reaction was too fast. Although the power of Long Yunfeng's spear blasted half of his body, the latter immediately turned into a beam of light and dodged. The man shouted, "Why don't we join hands? Let's split the starting ground in half. Do we have to fight until the end? We're just looking for opportunities." He didn't expect that the other party would give up fighting in this situation. and Zhang Wei and the others were very smart. They came here for money. Now the situation was 4 against 4. If they continued to fight like this, they might suffer losses on both sides. So Zhang Wei looked at Xue Fei, asking for his opinion. If he took them to the chaotic vast sea, he could join hands with the Beast King and choose how to take them down in one fell swoop. It seemed not a bad idea. It was unrealistic for him to kill so many people right now. So, Xue Fei nodded. Long Yunfeng returned to this side and looked at Zhang Wei and Xue Fei. Chou Chen was ignored by him. If it weren't for this guy, he could still fight. But now, he felt that Xue Fei, his trump card, had been exposed, and it would be difficult to fight next. Therefore, Long Yunfeng also nodded. Zhang Wei immediately shouted, "Okay. As you wish, the resources of the starting ground will be split in half. Don't think you're the only one who has a backup plan. Since we dared to intercept you, you've seen the result of the battle." The man of the Yin family's heart turned cold. He thought to himself, "I'll let you die without a burial place later." But on the surface, he said solemnly, "We're all here for money, not death. We just killed a group of Sea Expansion Realm tax collectors. What's the big deal? When the time comes, we can give you 5% more of the resources." Seeing the situation, Chou Chen seemed to accept his fate and said, "I have no objection." Chapter 2150. Welcome to the new Alliance Master, Spicy Her. I remember you. I've been chasing after my true love. Han Fei didn't intend to expose himself. He planned to play dirty until the end. Anyway, it was 4 against 4, and neither side dared to act rashly. As for cooperation, that was pure nonsense. The Yin family had been coveting the chaotic ocean sea for a long time, and the venerable emperor of the Yin family had tried to enter the chaotic ocean sea more than once or twice. However, at that time, they mostly came through the investiture of God's heaven, or came to the edge of the entrance of the chaotic ocean sea in person. Although Han Fei didn't know how he found it, he probably didn't come from the entrance. He might have used some other means. Therefore, the Beast King and Chu Hao's remnant souls could barely resist him. Of course, in Han Fei's view, there must be another strong person guarding the chaotic ocean sea. This mysterious person had never shown up. Since the Yin family knew all this, they should know the existence of the Beast King, so they wouldn't just send a few heaven-opening realm cultivators. Therefore, since they came here, they must have an unknown trump card. Therefore, the person from the Yin family was just stalling, which meant that Zhang Wei and the others couldn't escape. Once they succeeded, Zhang Wei and the others would all die. With the mysterious man, the Beast King, and Chu Hao guarding the chaotic ocean sea, Han Fei didn't think that the Yin family's plan would succeed. Even if their plan really brought the power to defeat the Beast King and the others, Han Fei still had his eldest senior brother. In that case, he also had his eldest senior brother to help out. Hence, it was impossible for chaotic Azure Sea to be harmed in this round. Han Fei had expected this result, so he had to wait until these people showed all their trump cards. Zhang Wei patted Xue Fei on the shoulder and said, "Old Xue, thanks to you this time. But we can't believe everything they say. We have to be careful." Xue Fei nodded slightly, but he thought to himself, "You're about to die, but you still don't know it." The two sides kept a certain distance and rushed into the depths of the primordial mist. But because they were on guard against each other, their speed was not very fast. After an hour in the primordial fog, they finally found a crack in the ice that seemed to have nothing at all. "Here we are." Han Fei was stunned. "How come we're here? Where's the entrance?" However, the black pearl in the Yin clan's hand was no longer flickering. Instead, it was glowing continuously, as if it had sensed that the entrance was here. The person from the Yin clan said, "The starting ground is hidden in the primal chaos. Everyone, release the primal chaos chi and open the entrance. Since the few of you from Scavenger City are participating, then let's do it together?" Han Fei frowned. Could releasing the chaotic gas open the entrance? Han Fei didn't know that the entrance to the starting ground was opened in this way. No wonder they didn't see the exit at all when they came out. So this was the reason. Zhang Wei and the others had no objections, but they did not release a lot of chaotic energy. They had to save it for the battle. How could they use up all their chaotic energy just to find an entrance? However, when the 8 heaven opening stage experts attacked at the same time, millions of strands of primal chaos chi were released. Soon, a large amount of primal chaos aura began to gather. It was as if they were being sucked in by a certain point. Soon, a black cave appeared. It indeed looked like an entrance. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. In a moment, it should be time for those people from the primitive city to change their faces. And he had to let Xue Fei live to the end and see their trump cards. However, just when they were about to enter the cave, a terrifying pressure descended. This kind of pressure directly surpassed the power of the heaven opening stage. It could even make the 8 heaven opening stage experts feel as if their bodies were carrying hundreds of millions of weights, to the point where it was difficult for them to move. An emperor? Zhang Wei, Long Yunfeng, and the others were not stupid. How could they not recognize this level of pressure? Except for an emperor, who else could directly suppress the 8 heaven opening stage experts with pressure? The people from the primitive city all showed a look of horror. From their expressions, it didn't look like they were pretending. Therefore, Zhang Wei and the others thought of the 10,000 Scales Emperor. After all, this was the territory of the scavenger city. In addition, something happened to the number 101 breeding farm, so it was not impossible for an emperor to pay attention to this place. The people from the primitive city shouted at the same time, "God's sealing seal, open." Blood explosion. The aura of the few people instantly skyrocketed. They were going to risk their lives. It seemed like they wanted to rush into the entrance before the emperor arrived. Long Yunfeng and Zhang Wei shouted at the same time, "Thieves, trying in vain to find the starting ground in the territory of the scavenger city. You are delusional." Thinking that an emperor might already be watching this place, Zhang Wei and Long Yunfeng did not dare to be negligent. They ignited their blood and tried to stop the people opposite them. Who would have expected the situation to change so quickly? An hour ago, they had just become allies. Now they had become enemies again. Including Xue Fei and Chou Chen, they all ignited their blood and tried to stop the other party. Among them, the fastest were Long Yunfeng and a female cultivator from the primitive city. The female cultivator's speed was even faster than the man from the Yin clan. The female cultivator and Long Yunfeng attacked one after another. The long spear in Long Yunfeng's hand was already cracked because he stabbed too hard. It was obvious how strong the spear's power was. However, at the moment when the two of them were about to reach the entrance, the void suddenly froze. Everyone was frozen on the spot and could not move at all. A man wearing an ice mask suddenly appeared. He placed a finger on the forehead of the female cultivator from the primordial city and the other on Long Yunfeng's forehead. Crash! The two of them instantly crumbled into specks of golden light and mist, completely disintegrating. Rumble, rumble, two strange phenomena occurred, which meant that the female cultivator from the primitive city and Long Yunfeng had died at the same time. Shoot, even Han Fei was shocked by this scene. This was not a fucking emperor of the Yin clan, nor was he the emperor of 10,000 Scales. But he was definitely an emperor too. He killed both of them. Besides, with just a point of his finger, the two heaven-opening stage experts were gone. Didn't they say that the heaven-opening stage experts had natal items? Even if they didn't have natal items, they should at least penetrate the origin sea and cut the Great Way. How did this venerable sovereign manage to kill them with just a point of his finger? Didn't an emperor need to destroy other people's origin sea or natal items? At this moment, Zhang Wei, Chou Chen, and the members of the Yin clan were all shocked. Who else could it be if not the emperor of 10,000 Scales? In the chaotic wasteland, apart from the two emperors of the Yin clan and the emperor of 10,000 Scales, there was only the silent master. Everyone thought of this, including Han Fei. At that moment, when the masked Dizun appeared, his gaze only lingered on them for a moment, and he did not linger on them for long. But when he looked at Xue Fei, Han Fei knew that he seemed to be looking at him. This was because his Tao heart had been touched in that instant. Former human king? Han Fei was not stupid. He was on the human emperor path. But the moment he saw the masked emperor, his Taoist heart trembled and even rejected him. Han Fei guessed that this person most likely sensed him, but he was not sure if he could see through him. Zhang Wei and the others felt that they were going to die. The silent master was here. How could they stop him? However, everyone did not understand why exploring a starting ground would attract one of the 3 city lords of the chaotic wasteland, the silent master. Why the fuck did you come to the remote sea of our scavenger city? In the blink of an eye, when the female cultivator of the primitive city and Long Yunfeng died, it was the silent master who glanced at them. The latter did not even have the time to kill them. Everyone only felt a buzzing sound as 3 pressures descended on them in a row. Gu Tingnan, you finally couldn't hold back and showed up. Hard work pays off. After planning for so long, I finally lured you out. Silent Master, today is the day you die. At that moment, above this place, a man with crystal-clear scales and jade-like skin walked out of the primordial mist like an immortal. This person was the Emperor of 10,000 Scales that Han Fei had seen in Xue Fei's memory. Zhang Wei and the others were still dumbfounded, but Han Fei instantly realized what was going on. This turned out to be a fucking trap. From the death of the tax messenger of the Sea Area 101 to the gathering of Han Fei and the others after the tidal wave, they came to ambush. In the end, they fought with the people of the primitive city. All of this was a trap. A few heaven-opening realm powerhouses died in vain. They were just pawns in this trap. The purpose was to make the silent master believe that the scavenger city and the primitive city had fought because of this starting ground, which led him to show up. The 10,000 Scales Emperor grabbed at the void and forcefully shattered the frozen void. Zhang Wei, Xue Fei, and Chou Chen were flung to one side. The 3 people who were rescued were overjoyed and shouted, "Greetings, Emperor." But the Emperor of 10,000 Scales responded and glanced at the 3 people. Later, we'll kill our way into this starting ground. On the other side, Han Fei saw the powerhouse of the Yin family that he had met once. Although it was only a phantom at that time, it was this phantom that almost killed him in the investiture heaven. Han Fei would never forget it for the rest of his life. The man shouted, "Gu Tingnan, it's time for you to die." Chapter 2151. For emperors appeared all of a sudden. Han Fei didn't feel good. Coincidentally, the previous emperor was tricked as soon as he came to the chaotic wasteland. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder if the opening of the chaotic azure sea had attracted the attention of the Yin family and the Emperor of 10,000 Scales when they came out. That gave them the chance to set up a trap to lure the silent master to attack? However, what could Han Fei do against the emperors? His goal was simple. He just wanted to kill Chou Chen and the others who knew about the chaotic ocean. Who would have thought that there was an even greater conspiracy hidden in this? Now that Zhang Wei and the others were rescued, the Yin family was also rescued. However, with the 4 emperors around, they didn't dare to act rashly. Even if they wanted to enter the starting land, they couldn't do it now. Right now, the legendary Silent Master was standing there. The Silent Master said calmly, "Ning Tenlong, compared to Primordial City, I hate you more. If you dare to participate in the battle today, be prepared to pay the price." Emperor 10,000 Scales sneered, "We've been enemies for a long time. I enslave the humans, you protect them, and I attack. You should be able to guess it." The Silent Master said, "You'd better be glad that you can keep me here today. Otherwise, I'll flatten your scavenger city sooner or later." Emperor 10,000 Scales was full of disdain. "You." On the other side, the 2 emperors of the Yin family appeared at the same time. And Balan said, "A few years ago, when the chaotic ocean was acting strangely, we set up this trap. Gu Tingnan, you can give up the chaotic ocean. Or, you can fight to the death today." The Silent Master said, "You're just a piece of trash who relies on women. You think you can fight to the death with me? Seems like the primitive city hasn't learned its lesson yet. You're courting death." In the blink of an eye, the 4 emperors disappeared at the same time. The ice within a range of 100,000 miles shattered almost instantly. The place where everyone was suddenly became extremely cold. That was because the surface of the sea was cracked open, and the extreme cold air quickly spread down. Zhang Wei and the others were thrown into the chaos cave uncontrollably. Obviously, it was the Emperor's doing. The battle in the outside world had nothing to do with them. Finally, the 10,000 Scales Emperor's voice resounded in Xue Fei's ears. Xue Fei, I have placed a projection on your body. Crush this jade and release a projection at the starting ground to destroy the human race. In the chaos, he looked down, only to see that a jade scale had appeared in his hand. Go to hell. Han Fei cursed in his heart. Did the Emperor of 10,000 Scales leave a projection or something? Of course, although he cursed, he still quickly put the jade slip away. In less than 10 breaths, the group suddenly flew out of the chaos cavern. When he took a closer look, he found himself surrounded by a black mist. Something's wrong. When Han Fei and the others arrived, they immediately felt that something was wrong. Where did so much ominous qi come from? Han Fei was shocked. This was not the entrance to the chaotic azure sea at all. At most, it was the entrance to a primitive graveyard. At that moment, Han Fei thought quickly. Did the Emperor of 10,000 Scales and the 2 Emperors of the Yin family lie to the Master of Silence, or did the Master of Silence lie to them? However, the Master of Silence was indeed fighting 1 against 3. Could he defeat them? If he deliberately let the Emperor of 10,000 Scales and the 2 Emperors of the Yin family set up a trap, then his purpose was actually to attract the 3 Emperors. So, when the 4 venerable Emperors gathered in this remote place, what had happened between the 3 main cities? Han Fei was confused. This bunch of old schemers. At this moment, Zhang Wei exclaimed, "Why is there ominous qi everywhere?" As he spoke, a large number of cleansing stones flew out of Zhang Wei's body. In an instant, everyone emitted a large amount of cleansing light to resist the endless ominous qi. They didn't know where they were, but Han Fei knew that there was no ominous qi in the chaotic azure sea. Then, this was obviously not the chaotic azure sea. It seemed more like the Master of Silence's trap. There must be a backup plan. Just the ominous qi alone was definitely not enough. There were all lords here, who didn't have hundreds of millions of cleansing stones. It was almost impossible to destroy the 6 heaven-opening realms with just the ominous qi alone. Han Fei couldn't help but think, since they let these heaven-opening realms come in, they must have prepared a backup plan. Even the Emperor of 10,000 Scales gave him a jade slip. How could the Yin family not have a backup plan? They must have come with a backup plan, right? However, before they used their backup plan, Han Fei suddenly felt that something was wrong. Danger was coming. Almost subconsciously, he controlled Xue Fei to fly out. While running, he also set up layers of dream realms. After Han Fei ran, he saw countless white threads appearing. Ha! A soft sound of surprise sounded, but it didn't continue. Because on the other side, Zhang Wei's reaction was 1 step slower than Xue Fei. However, Zhang Wei chose to self-destruct as soon as possible. Rumble. When a heaven-opening realm self-destructed, the range of the explosion directly swept hundreds of thousands of miles around. A large number of cleansing stones exploded along with Zhang Wei, causing the surrounding ominous qi to be instantly expelled for tens of thousands of miles. At this time, Han Fei took a closer look, only to see that Cho Chen had grown a head full of white hair. The white hair was so long that Han Fei couldn't help but think of the name, 3,000 feet of white hair. They watched as the white hair continued to spread out in the area where Zhang Wei had exploded. Each strand of hair seemed to be able to pierce through the void. In just a few breaths of time, there was a cracking sound as if something had been broken. Rumble. Just like that, a middle-rank lord had fallen on the spot. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. Fuck, he thought that there was a backup plan of the Master of Silence here, but he never expected that this backup plan turned out to be Cho Chen. No wonder he always felt that Cho Chen was weird. There was always a kind of indescribable weirdness. Now it seemed that from the very beginning, Cho Chen and the others had regarded them as cannon fodder. Logically speaking, if there really was a starting ground, Cho Chen could have looked for many people. Why did he look for Xue Fei and the others who were ordinary hunters? It turned out that Cho Chen had calculated from the beginning because Xue Fei and the others were easy to kill. When needed, he could kill them easily. On the side of the primordial city, the powerhouse of the Yin family couldn't help but exclaim, "One of the 4 great generals of the city of vagrants, Duan Qingxi?" Han Fei actually recognized her. After all, he had just read the information about the city of vagrants not long ago. Duan Qingxi, one of the 4 great generals of the city of vagrants, had killed 11 emperors in her life. When she attacked the primordial city, she destroyed 2 cities by herself. It was said that her white hair became bloodthirsty and black, and she was extremely fierce. Duan Qingxi looked at Xue Fei at this moment, and Xue Fei was directly controlled by Han Fei to escape into the ominous qi. Duan Qingxi didn't chase after him. She just sneered and looked at the primordial city. "If you don't want to die, show me your trump card. I'd like to see which one of the 2 emperors of the Yin family has descended." Sure enough, as Duan Qingxi expected, a triangular divine seal suddenly appeared behind the leader of the Yin family. This was a divine technique of the Yin family. It looked like God's arrival, because the strength of the leader of the Yin family was skyrocketing. However, it didn't look like God's arrival, because the eyes of the leader had completely changed. His body was gradually surrounded by another special force, and his body gradually showed the power of an emperor. At this moment, when the eyes of the leader changed completely, he said in the tone of a supreme master, "Duan Qingxi? I didn't expect this to be your trap." Duan Qingxi sneered. "Me? I was wondering who it was." "And Bai Lin, how much power did you send? Can this body withstand it?" "Even if it's a trap, I will kill you, one of the 4 great generals of the city of vagrants, here and now." "Kill me? Do you really think this trap is so simple?" With that, Duan Qingxi reached out and grabbed a small world. Yes, Han Fei recognized that thing. It was a small world in a crystal ball. The moment the 3,000 strands of green silk cut this small world like knives, hundreds of ferocious giant shadows appeared. Each of those black shadows turned out to be an ominous creature. And the strength of these ominous creatures turned out to be at the heaven-opening realm, and not just the ordinary kind of heaven-opening realm. When these heaven-opening realm ominous creatures appeared, the surrounding ominous air swept over again. This place fell into darkness again. On the side of the Yin family, only one emperor descended. He rushed out immediately, and a massive amount of pure stones turned into hundreds of millions of knife lights, instantly cutting into this group of heaven-opening realm ominous creatures. However, although the heaven-opening realm was no match for an emperor, the master of the Yin family who was descended was at most a beginner of the emperor realm. It would be a joke if he wanted to wipe out so many heaven-opening realm ominous creatures with one blow. Duan Qingxi sneered. "I've been creating the world for 80,000 years. Today, I'm here to see the combat power of an emperor." After that, the world was covered by white silk. The white silk, like swords, intertwined into a net, condensed into a stream, like a huge sword in the sea, cutting through the darkness and illuminating the sky. And Bai Lin's projection shouted coldly, "Humph! How dare a mere star compete with the sun and the moon? God's seal, dead spirit grinder." While they were fighting, in the ominous air, Han Fei appeared, holding a fishing rod, breaking the void, and had fished more than 30 times. "Son of a bitch, it seems that the distance is too far, which affects my fishing." Suddenly, Han Fei felt the hook sink, and his eyes lit up. "It's done." A figure was fished out of the void by Han Fei. This person was wearing an ice mask. Who else could it be but the Lord of Silence? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.